Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, join us as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, some television, other little stuff here and there. And, hey, it was the big day yesterday. It was the Oscars, my second favorite day of the year, and, Rob, a lot of expected stuff, a few big surprises. We'll talk about that in a second. But here also joining me is the aforementioned, the one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
John, doing well. You know, the Oscars have always been one of my favorite days of the year, too. I've been watching them since I was a little kid, and I still get ghibli every time an Oscar show starts. And
it was a very, very interesting show. We're going to talk about it in some detail here. We're going to talk about, the winners. We're going to talk about the losers. We're going to talk about some of our favorite moments. But we also got some other things to talk about. Birds of Prey open to a disappointing number. But how disappointing is it really? We're going to talk about that in just a second. Lilo and Stitch, we've heard rumors for a long time now, but it looks like they are moving forward. Disney Plus is going to do a live action remake of Lilo and Stitch. Also, that movie that turned out to be a complete disaster that never got released, Chaos Walking, with Daisy Ridley and Tom Holland. It's actually got a release date now. We're going to talk about that and a whole bunch more. But we're going to get now into our main topics here today, guys. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out. It's absolutely free with your topic or question. Hit submit. And then maybe, just maybe, you just might see your topic or question as the featured questions here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get on to our main topics today. And we're starting off with our first main topic today that gets sent in to us by Jackson F., who writes, "Hey, John, I wanted to get this in early and ask what you thought about the Academy Awards last night. How did you feel the show went without a host for the second year in a row? And did you find there were any big surprises? And who was the big winner overall?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, the Academy Awards were last night, and it got off to a mixed start, Rob. I'm going to tell you right now, it got off to a mixed start. On the one hand, I thought the opening musical number was terrible. I mean, which is really weird because I actually really like the people. Like when I saw her come on stage in the Mr. Rogers thing, I thought, "Ooh, this is cool," and she's gonna sing. She's a great singer. But then they did the whole thing with the audience, la 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 la, and I'm like, "This is la 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 lame. This is stupid," and it just kind of felt didn't work for me as a musical number, and that's fine, whatever. Started off sorry, but then Rob, Steve Martin and Chris Rock come out on stage. And first of all, I love both these guys. Both these guys are amazing. So Chris Rock and Steve Martin come on stage, and they're making jokes about the fact that they're not actually hosting. They've been demoted, which I thought was really funny. I thought that was really slick. Chris Rock made one of the best jokes of the night when they, pointed out and recognized Marty Scorsese. And Chris Rock goes, "Mr. Scorsese, I just want to let you know I loved season 1 of The Irishman," which was, of course, a jab on the right. I just thought they were great. So that was wonderful. Before we get into the winners and losers, Rob, I just want to throw this in here and get this out of the way. This was the second year in a row that they opted to go without a host, wanting to avoid all the turmoil, the social media outrage that whoever they picked would inevitably get. So they decided to go. Now, last year, when they went without a host, I was skeptical about them going without a host, but it actually was a pretty good show, and it actually had pretty good flow. Not enough that I'd want them to always go without a host, but it worked last year. And so I was perfectly fine and okay that they wanted to take one more year and go without a host. It needed a host this year. It felt so disjointed and chaotic, and it's like you get a bunch of random people. You get a bunch of random people to introduce other people. You know what I mean? Like they brought out, I love seeing Kelly Marie Tran, but she was just out there to say, "Look, everybody, it's Questlove. And now introducing so-and-so." And somebody else comes out to present an award. So I got what they were going for, but unlike last year where I felt it kind of went without a host, without a hitch, This year, I kind of felt like, yeah, it's time to bring a host back in just to give it more of a steady flow. But I don't know. How did you feel about it going without a host for a second year in a row?
I felt the exact same way that you did. I liked last year's show, the hostless. I mean, it was more like, let's see how this is going to work. And I thought it worked great last year, but like you, I felt the show was incredibly disjointed. It had really no cohesion. And also, sometimes they would bring up, by the way, I want to say that Kelly Marie Tran looked absolutely adorable last night.
Oh, she looked amazing, yes.
She had an incredible dress on. And I thought she was actually really good. I was like, okay, she could host the show. But I there's something about this kind of continuity. You want to see, I want to see a host at the Academy Awards. I want somebody to take us through that journey. Somebody I already respect or I already have a great deal of admiration for, because I just think that that's part of what the show is. And I feel that by not having a show, there's some concession being made to forces I don't think should be conceded to. I think for the Academy Awards, they need to step up and say, we are not going to allow ourselves to be told what to do by people that maybe aren't even necessarily involved with our industry. And I would like to see a host come back.
Yeah, I agree. I would also like to see a host come back. So that was one thing. And look, it wasn't a train wreck or anything. You could really feel the lack of a host this year where it's like, and listen, I'm all for Chris Rock, Steve Martin 2021. I'm all for it. It's sign me up. I'm all good for that if they wanted to go that way. Some of the other presenters were really quite good. But I'll tell you what, Rob, the one that killed me was James Gordon. James Corden, Rebel Wilson, coming out in their Cats outfit. I thought that was so self-aware and so funny, especially when she comes out, nobody knows better than us the value of good visual effects. I just thought that was good-hearted. I thought it was them poking fun at their own project and their own movie. And I that was a big positive moment for me that I really quite enjoyed. What did you think about that moment? And were there any other moments of the show that really stood out to you as like really big highlights?
Well, first of all, I got to tell you, I was really conflicted by that moment because, in a way, let's say you win your Academy Award that night for VFX, and that's who you're presented it to, I mean, I understand that Cats didn't necessarily work, but even as bad as Cats might have been in the perception, it still was a movie that hundreds of people worked on. You had an Academy Award caliber director directing Cats. And yeah, it was a major misfire. But I think that, the Academy Awards should not be necessarily, look, they do mock people. I do understand that. But I think the art and craft of cinema, I don't know if it just rubbed me the wrong way, man. I was like,
really?
Yeah, I get it. I get it was humorous, and I understand laughing at yourself and being self-aware is always a good thing. But I felt like the guys who worked on 1917, who won the VFX award, it's like, we put our heart and soul into this movie, and I would appreciate if our category. I mean, I understand it was mocking, but it was like that. I think that belonged somewhere else in the show and not with awards presenters, if that makes any sense. Only because.
Let me ask you this, because now I'm curious. How did you feel then about, like, say, Will Ferrell and Julia Louis-Dreyfus coming out and saying the cinematographer makes all the meals that we eat and stuff like that? So you weren't happy with that one either?
No, because especially it's like, when I was watching this kind of thing, and I'm like, I've loved the art of cinematography my whole life, and I think that you can never celebrate the art of cinematography enough. And again, I just don't think that they should be mocking the categories that they're giving out for Best of the Year. And while I thought their bit was sort of funny, I thought that sort of belonged in more of an opening or an overall examination, like maybe in a musical number or some kind of a bit, but not with the presenters of the awards, because not only did it sort of make fun of the whole thing, but it made fun of even the lesser people. It made fun of the caterers in a way. And I'm like, I have such respect for movie crews, and when you're giving awards to people that are the best of the year, especially like look at a man like Roger Deakins who embodies Hollywood elegance and excellence. And he's been nominated so many times. He only won one previous time for Blade Runner 2049, and he was winning for such a innovative film that took so much time and effort to figure out. And I get it, people laugh, but it's just still, I'm like,
it's a little bit of a catch-22 because the Oscars are often criticized for taking themselves and their own industry a little bit too seriously. And it felt like they were getting into it. But I can see where you're coming from. But moving on from that, I mean, what about the Eminem moment?
Oh, well, the Eminem moment I thought was a little odd until you told me before the show that he didn't get to sing that song. Clearly, the crowd loved it. Everybody was singing along. I actually liked the performance. I thought the performance of the song from Frozen 2 with all the different
wonderful
actresses from around the world. The song from Harriet. What a great production. I loved that. And I have to say, I usually tune out during the Oscar song presentations.
Me too.
I thought they were all really good this year. I really did enjoy the performances. I don't know why. Maybe I'm becoming a sap in my old age, but I thought they were really well done. I like the presentation of all of them. I really did quite enjoy that. And I have to say, Billie Eilish and her brother singing yesterday over the memoriam, I thought was very moving as well. And I really enjoyed all of that the production of the show. So
I still would, if I had my druthers, I would say no musical performances other than the special ones, like in memoriam, maybe something else. I'm not for the singing of each song of the performances, because ultimately what happens is the best song category, which is the least important category of the night, gets 5 times, maybe 6 or 7 times the Oscar screen time does than the best director category. How does that make sense? How does it make sense that the least important, a song that takes place over 2.5 minutes in a movie, gets 6 times more screen time at the Oscars than best director does at the Oscars? It makes no sense to me. But I have to admit that if you're going to have them, that was a pretty good one last night. I got to admit, that was those ones from Harriet. They were all really, really done well. Anyway, a lot of great moments there. But Rob, let's go ahead.
I also love Regina King. I just have to give shouts out to Regina King. She's an incredibly beautiful woman. I loved her dress. I loved everything she said. I have to say, I love the Hollywood glamour. I do love seeing, Renee Zellweger. Even though her speech was clearly, she was moved and she looked phenomenal, but I really liked, her message, and I really enjoyed. I think I enjoyed the show a lot this year. I loved everybody who won. I like what people said. Maybe Joaquin Phoenix was a little all over the place, but
yeah, I don't know what that was about.
I enjoyed the show. I enjoyed, even though I thought it was scattered.
Let's talk then. Let's get into talking about some of the winners. Clearly, a lot of the show went paint by the numbers. I was very pleasantly surprised because you remember me saying Ford v Ferrari should win Best Editing, but it's not going to. Blah blah blah. I was very pleasantly surprised to see that Ford v Ferrari did win Best Editing.
Yep.
For the most part, the evening went, as far as the results go, according to the playbook. We knew Joaquin Phoenix would win. He won. We knew Zellweger would win. She won. We knew Laura Dern would win. She won. We knew Brad Pitt would win. He won. Totally agree with all the winners, by the way. Totally agree with all the winners. With the one big exception, and that, it was a glorious surprise, but it was Bong Joon-ho, number 1, winning for Best Director, and then number 2, Parasite, which was my number 2 favorite film of the year. Parasite took the Best Picture award. And that, if you followed the pattern of all the awards coming in, it was easy. Sam Mendes was going to win Best Director. 1917 was going to win Best Picture. And 1917 is my 3rd favorite film of the year, so I had no complaints that Sam Mendes was going to win Best Director and 1917 was going to win Best Picture. No complaints at all. But Rob, when Best Screenplay came around, and Parasite won Best Screenplay, okay, interesting. That's interesting. But when Bong Joon-ho won Best Director, at that point, you had to sit back in your seat and go, wait a minute. We just had 1917 win Best Screenplay and win Best Director. I don't know that 1917 or Parasite won Best Director and Best Screenplay. I don't know that 1917 is actually going to win Best Picture now. And I remember even put up a poll because I think I'm thinking 1917 is going to get upset. And I don't know how it wouldn't have once it lost out. Once Parasite won Best Screenplay and Bong Joon-ho won Best Director. It's like, well, the writing's kind of on the wall now, isn't it? And I couldn't be more thrilled for them. Of course, my favorite movie of the year was Jojo Rabbit. Super awesome to see Taika Waititi win Best Screenplay there as well. That was great. But I mean, just a really big surprise, I think, but a really well-deserved one. Parasite is a masterpiece of a film, and I couldn't be happier for him. But that, to me, was the big surprise of the night. Rob, how surprised were you when Bong Joon-ho, number one, took Best Director, but also Parasite won Best Picture?
Dude, I was. First of all, Bong Joon-ho tied Walt Disney last night for winning the most awards at one Academy Awards ceremony, which is 4. He won.
Oh, wow.
He won for screenplay. He won for best foreign film. He won best director and best picture.
That's right. And he individually, because his name is on each one of those categories.
Yes.
I didn't even think about that.
Yes. And I've been a Bong Joon-ho fan since the early aughts when I had seen The Host, which is if you haven't seen The Host, it's an incredible monster movie made in Korea. And it's not it's not a kaiju monster movie, but it's a monster movie. And that was the first time I really became familiar with him. Then I went back and watched the movie he'd made before that, Memories of Murder, which is an incredible serial killer story. And then, of course, he made Snowpiercer and Mother. And I've been a huge fan of his. But to see what happened last night was he upset. Everyone thought it was going to win Best Foreign Film. There was talk that...
Oh, that was automatic. Yeah, that was an automatic.
Yeah, it was. But screenplay was an upset, I think. And it's funny because, as Bong Joon-ho pointed out, Quentin Tarantino was a champion of him and his work. One of the reasons that people got to see his work in America, like The Host, and then he beat Quentin Tarantino, for original screenplay. And winning Best Foreign Film, another Oscar record. No foreign film has ever also won Best Picture.
Correct.
It was the first non-English language movie to ever win Best Picture. So there were a lot of firsts there, which I liked. I mean,
he had the line of the night. He had the line of the night, which is, "I'm now going to go drink until daytime."
Right.
Which is one of the best lines ever at the Oscars.
And the fact that he was honoring, he created from the stage a great moment for Martin Scorsese.
Yes, he did.
Which was great. I love that moment. And clearly, I don't think anybody would object to the wins that they made last night, because obviously Parasite is one of the most highly regarded and certainly one of the most fiercely original films of the year. But I think it's a real statement. It's one thing when you talk about, we have to be more woke, but it was really great seeing how South Korea and foreign film was represented last night.
Yeah, it was my number 2 favorite film of the year, so it was totally magnificent. Let's go over quickly now a bunch of the winners last night. And of course, last night we're looking at Parasite winning Best Picture. The only thing that would have made me even happier was if Jojo Rabbit had won, but I think it was pretty clear that it wasn't going to win. So Parasite winning, big surprise of the evening to me. Joaquin Phoenix, again, no surprises there. I'm not quite sure what the acceptance speech was about, whatever. Renee Zellweger winning Best Actress. The Best Actor and Best Actress were so totally predictable, but so totally deserved, both of these. What Joaquin Phoenix did with Joker, what Renee Zellweger did with that was incredible. Of course, also going completely according to script, Brad Pitt with a really good acceptance speech as well.
Great speech.
Especially talking about his origins in Hollywood and coming. I just thought it was wonderful. Laura Dern, of course, winning as well. These were, of course, completely predicted and predictable. Rob, Best Animated Feature was an interesting one because we had not seen in the awards circuit Toy Story winning.
Right.
We had been seeing Missing Link. We've seen Klaus winning, especially at the Annie Awards. Klaus swept up. But I said going in, I said, I just think the Academy members, Toy Story 4 is the kind of film that's going to appeal to Academy members more. And I think it's going to win.
Man.
And it did. But that's not I mean, if you have not seen Klaus yet, I was late to the party on Klaus, and because a lot of people told me to go watch it, I did. If you have not seen that, do watch it. It is quite good, but not a big. I believe this is the 10th Pixar film to win Best Animated Feature. Anyway, Rob, were you surprised that it did win, or did you see that coming too?
No, I was surprised actually that it won, but I was happy to see it. It just goes to show you, Pixar has been delivering. I think Pixar. Everybody loves Pixar movies, but by God, in terms of a run of animated excellence, in terms of excellence anywhere. Does anyone have a record like Pixar has? I mean, my God, do they know how to make great films? And it was, I really liked hearing the speech, the people that made Big Hair, which won the short.
Yeah, short.
And they made the point about how we all begin our cinematic lives. We become movie fans first by seeing animation. You know, when we're kids, it goes way back. And I loved it. I love that Toy Story 4 won, although, there was a lot of really deserving work there.
There was. Moving on to cinematography, again, no surprise. Roger Deakins, very classy speech, too, like thanking his focus guy, his focus puller, his assist. I mean, just thanking everybody that worked with him. But there was no doubt there, right? Roger Deakins was, for 1917, there was no doubt, right?
No doubt. Yeah, no, I think that he's lost so many times for so much worthy work. It's nice to see him winning.
What is he at, like 15 nominations or something like that?
Something like that.
They should just rename the award the Roger Deakins Award. I'm pretty sure at this point. Costume design. Jacqueline Duran for Little Women. Not what I thought was going to win, but I mean, you can't argue against it either. I mean, it's a completely worthy win. There were a number of great nominations there, so a little surprised, but not really. So I was perfectly happy with it. Of course, we already talked about Bong Joon-ho, the first big surprise of the evening, beating Sam Mendes for Parasite, which is great. American Factory won Best Documentary Feature Length, which was a great speech as well. Documentary short, Learning to Skateboard in a War Zone, which I have not seen, but after seeing the clips from it and hearing these two women talk about it, I want to desperately go see it. Have you had a chance to see that yet?
No,
but I hadn't either. Big pleasant surprise for me. I did not think Ford v Ferrari was going to win Best Film Editing, though I completely 100% believed it should have, and they did pull that off. And Rob, the editing in that film was just so amazing. It's nice to see Ford v Ferrari, which for the most part had been overlooked going into Oscar season for any of the majors. It was nice to see it win one of the big major awards in editing. Your thoughts on that?
Dude, you know me, editing is my jam, and I thought that movie was so brilliantly done. And also, I said to Elizabeth, I was surprised it didn't win both sound categories, but I knew it was going to win one.
I thought it was going to win both sound categories too, but
me too.
It was good to win too. The most 100% lock of the night, even more than the acting awards, was Best International Feature. Parasite was nominated for Best Picture. None of the other international features were nominated for Best Picture. That was an automatic. So It won that. Makeup and hairstyling. You know what? I'm a little bit surprised. A lot of people called Bombshell. I really thought Joker was going to take that one. Again, they did a remarkable job in Bombshell, so no argument from me, no complaints from me, but there were a lot of people who called it. I did not. What do you think about Bombshell winning hair and makeup?
No, I thought it was good. I mean, look, sometimes we think, does hair and makeup have to be monsters? No. The fact that they made Charlize Theron look like Megyn Kelly, and it was really convincing, that's a hard thing to do when somebody is front and center, close-ups, because we all know what human beings look like, and if it wasn't perfect, then it wouldn't have worked, and it was.
And it set up one of the best jokes of the night too, with Ray Romano going saying, "Hair and makeup is so important." For example, I'm Charlize Theron. I thought that was a great moment. Joker winning Best Musical Score. A lot of people called this one. Still, you never know going into it, but it was a deserved win. Beautiful speech by Hildur. Your thoughts on Joker winning for Best Score?
I thought it was great. And again, I believe, is it the first woman who's won an Academy Award for Best Score?
I don't believe the first, but I think it's the first in like 23, 24, 25 years.
Yeah, something like long time. I thought it was great. She's great. That score is amazing. I mean, she is a fierce new talent. Between Joker and Chernobyl, man,
Oh,
she had
the work she did on Chernobyl.
She had a great year. She's, I guess she's the Bjork of film composers now. She's amazing. She's amazing.
Let's see. Best song. Not again. I think the least important category of the night, but best original song. "Love Me Again" from Rocket Man. I gotta tell you what, that would have been my last pick. I had no problem that it was nominated. It would have been my last pick. But hey, it won, and that's fine. I know there were a lot of people happy with it, but I don't know. I think I would have gone either the song from Harriet or the song from Frozen 2, Into the Unknown. But they went with that one, and that's fine. But your thoughts on that?
I agree with you. I mean, look, I would never say that Elton John wasn't talented, but it seemed like it was very Elton John. It wasn't exactly groundbreaking Elton John, even in his oeuvre, and I'm a huge fan. But yeah, I think the song from Frozen 2, and I really like that song from Harriet a lot. And I just thought that was the safe choice. I think the voters are probably like, well, we got to give it to Elton John.
Maybe.
But I'll tell you what was nice, though, was seeing Bernie Taupin talk.
Up there,
because,
yeah.
It was great. They've been making music together for, as he said, over 50 years,
He writes all the songs.
It was great that Bernie Taupin got a moment, that he got an Oscar, because I don't think when Elton John won his first Oscar that Bernie Taupin wrote the song. I don't think he did. And
was that Lion King?
Yeah, I think it was.
You're right. He didn't write that. He didn't write that.
Yeah, and so he didn't get to win an Oscar. Elton John did. So it was good to see. This one of the most formidable singer-songwriting duos in pop music history to win together. I thought that was a great moment.
It was a good moment. Production design, no complaints from me. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I mean, they literally rebuilt Hollywood, physically rebuilt Hollywood. Now, I'm not the biggest fan in the world of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I like the movie, but I'm not the biggest fan in the world of it. But there's no taking away from the production design. What they did with Hollywood, just transforming it back 4 or 5 decades, was impressive to say the least. Short film you mentioned a little bit earlier, Hair Love. That was a really nice moment. Short film live action went to The Neighbor's Window. Sound editing, as the aforementioned, as you mentioned already, Rob, Ford v Ferrari, which made me a little bit surprised because a lot of times we'll see sound editing also win sound mixing. Sound mixing decided to go 1917, and truly the sound in that movie was so immersive, Rob. It just drew you right in, and the sound mixing was a big thing of that. 1917 wins Best Visual Effects. While I have no, quarrel with the visual effects in 1917, they are truly amazing. I still contend, and I know a lot of people disagree with me, and that's fine. The Lion King, love or hate the movie, to me is one of the most ridiculous feats ever in the history of visual effects and motion pictures, to the point that most people still look at it and think it's live action. That's how, I mean, I'm
in total agreement with you.
Completely beside myself. That should have been a gimme. It should have been, again, it doesn't matter if you hate the movie. The visual effects in Lion King are the most mind-boggling, stunning things we've probably ever seen in films from a visual effects perspective, to the point that a lot of people still qualify it as a live action film. But again, not taking anything away from Endgame, from 1917, from the other nominees, but I was a little surprised to see it. But again, it's not like the visual effects in 1917 were bad and it totally didn't deserve to be there. They're fantastic. So I'm happy for them and all that kind of stuff. But Rob, would 1917 have been your pick?
No. But look, I understand why. I mean, me, the king of verisimilitude, that's what those visual effects did. It was seamless. And when they showed you like how that church really wasn't there, the burning church on fire, and at night, that one clip, you realize just how well done the visual effects in that movie were. Now, I agree with you. I think Lion King is a superlative achievement in visual effects technology. But I mean, I understand where they're coming from in terms of sometimes what they did in 1917 is the very hardest thing of all, and that is to recreate reality seamlessly. So I didn't think it maybe necessarily deserved it over Lion King. I understand why it won.
Yeah, and again, it's not like it's an undeserving recipient. They did a fabulous, fabulous job in that film, which led us into, again, our best original screenplay, Bong Joon-ho, again, for Parasite, such a wonderful screenplay. But I was so glad. Look, when Taika Waititi did not get a Best Director nomination, that sealed the fate of Jojo Rabbit from winning Best Picture. I mean, we've only seen one time in the last 50 years that a movie won Best Picture without its director being nominated for Best Director, and that, of course, was Argo. So it's only ever happened. So once he didn't get nominated for Best Director, that sealed the fate. So all I could be left with is hoping it won one of the majors. So thrilled that Jojo Rabbit and Taika Waititi, who's now Academy Award winner, Taika Waititi, won for Jojo Rabbit. Brilliant screenplay. Couldn't be happier. Rob, your thoughts on those two wins, Parasite and Jojo Rabbit for screenplay?
Well, absolutely richly deserved. I mean, I didn't realize how different the Jojo Rabbit book that it's based on was from what Taika Waititi did. Apparently, it's not like a satire the way the movie turned out to be. And that was fascinating to hear, especially because I listened to his speech backstage. It richly deserved win there, and I think in a way, people might say, "Oh, did he deserve it over Tarantino?" But
yes.
Oh, well, they're in different categories because they're in different categories.
Right.
But
Tarantino was against Bong Joon-ho.
Yeah, it was against Bong. But the difficulty of threading the needle of satire and poignancy in Jojo Rabbit was masterfully done. So I think absolutely should have won that award. And with Bong Joon-ho and Tarantino, I think what Bong Joon-ho did, he's an incredibly versatile filmmaker, just like Tarantino is. But man, I would almost say that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was actually an adaptation because so much of it was taken from real Hollywood, real people. And while, it was made up, but there's a lot of reality in it, whereas Parasite was made up really from whole cloth. So both of those, I mean, the both of those wins are absolutely deserving, and I don't feel that anybody was slighted in either category. It was great. Those are both great, well-deserved wins.
Well, that does it for all of the awards. But Rob, like any other, as we've been talking about the Oscars, anything else from the evening that like really stood out to you as a big pro or as a big negative? Any other big moments for you that you really enjoyed from the show or kind of rubbed you the wrong way?
Well, no, I did think this was definitely, people would say it is a woke Oscars ceremony, which I think is good. But what I really did like is how some of the time it was the idea of giving voices to people. It was woven into the show in a more naturalistic fashion. Yeah, people could tub thump when they were making their speeches, but I liked the way they honored people. And I thought it was great. And certainly we had a pretty interesting group of winners, and I thought in terms of people are talking about, well, are the Oscars still relevant? We've talked about it on this show, and absolutely they are. And I thought, if nothing else, the people that won, it really was I thought, an uplifting show, and it really celebrated just how many different kinds of movies are being made and honored. And I think for anybody that's talking about representation and all of that, you know what? The future of entertainment in terms of hearing new voices is pretty damn bright. And that's how I felt watching the show last night. I was very, very surprised, and I thought it was good. Good.
And what stood out to me, too, was, again, just how damn good 2019 was as a year in film. Like, you're just watching this and you're seeing all these things, like from movies that got totally shut out at the Oscars last night, whether it's Irishman or The Farewell or The Two Popes. Guys, seriously, if you haven't seen Two Popes, I know it doesn't look like your kind of movie. Watch Two Popes. I loved it. I thought it was great. But you go through all these films that were completely shut out were amazing. Like, that's just how good of a year it was for 2019. I was thrilled. Again, my big takeaway, though, from the show as a whole, I really hope they get a host for next year. And just make the show flow smoother. Just nail that. Get that. I don't care if it's even a really safe bet. And I don't know, again, I'm throwing in my ballot for Chris Rock and Steve Martin to host it together next year. But anyway, guys, what did you think of the Academy Awards last night? Some high moments, some weird moments, sure, but what did you think about it overall? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our second main topic today. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Chris Brickner, who writes, well, it looks like DC's winning streak ended, not with a critical dud, but a box office one. Birds of Prey opened below industry predictions of a 50 to 55 million opening and below Warner's own $45 million opening predictions, with openings of 33.25 million domestically and 81 million opening globally against predictions of 110 to 125 million from Deadline. While not a flop, with a budget of $84 million, it is a disappointing opening. Why do you think it opened so low? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Chris. And yeah, let's go over and take a look at the box office numbers from this weekend. Birds of Prey did open at number one at the box office, but not as strongly at number one as a lot of people had predicted or hoped. It opened with 33.25 million. That will be adjusted come later on today. Bad Boys for Life is still hanging in there, doing well with legs at 12, another additional 12 million. 1917, with all the Oscar buzz going on, pulled in an additional 9. Doolittle made an additional 6.6, and Jumanji: The Next Level, which just keeps chugging along, not going to make as much as the original one, but it's still chugging along, made another $5.5 million. So it brings up the question, what happened with Birds of Prey? I think before we get into the disappointment, I think there's something we should keep in mind here. This movie, worldwide, pretty much made back its production budget. That doesn't mean it's breaking even. Not yet. It's still got a long ways to go to break even. But usually, if a movie on its opening weekend worldwide can pull off the accomplishment of making back its production budget, that's not the worst thing in the world. Like, regardless of what expectations on, I never like the idea of measuring the success of a movie by what people's random arbitrary expectations were. I don't think that's a realistic thing to measure it by. Like, you can go into a basketball game and say, well, LeBron James scored 45 points, but go, oh, yeah, but we expected him to score 80 points. 80 points is nowhere near 45. So therefore, terrible performance by LeBron. No, 45 points in a game is outstanding. So I'm never big on judging a movie's performance based on what its expectations were. I rather just look at its numbers. This is a movie, Rob, that needs to make probably around the $250 million mark to break even. I don't know that this movie's going to break even. But there are some people online painting this particular film, Rob, as an unmitigated disaster. Like, at 33, this is a total fall on its face, hard kind of flop. The reality is it's not. It's a little disappointing, but it's not the biggest flop in the world.
No.
I did not like this film. It was better than I thought it would be a number of months ago. A number of months ago, I thought this thing was just going to be terrible. And it's not terrible. It's not awful. I just didn't particularly like it, which is unfortunate. So there's that. But Rob, when you look at its overall number, it's not great. So what happened? What went wrong? That's what people are asking now. What went wrong with this thing? Why did it so underperform? And I want to propose a couple of things. Thing number one is something I said from the very beginning that they made this movie. I did not think this was a wise movie to make. I mean, I said that from day one. I did not think this was a wise movie to make. And look, when you look at how it's structured, you're talking about the side character of a side character, right? It's one thing, because you got Batman, and it's one thing to dig down one more level. Joker is a side character. Ultimate villain, all that kind of stuff. Okay. Harley is a side character of that side character. And now I got it. Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn in Suicide Squad was really great. At least I really like Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn in Suicide Squad. So I got that, but I never really understood. I never felt like out there was a hunger for this movie. I didn't understand the rationale behind making it. And I said that all from day one. The other thing was, Rob, and you wouldn't know this till you see it. This movie, the trailers, I never thought were all that good. But more importantly, the trailers never once told you what the plot of this movie was. Right. It never once just told you what the movie was about. And when you go to see the movie and you realize, when you go see the movie, and for those of you who have seen it, you know what the movie's about. It's like, the trailers didn't at all remotely tell the movie or tell the audience, what is this movie about? I'm not talking about giving away spoilers. I'm not talking about ruining but just, by the way, we want you to come and pay $15, come see our movie. This is what you're getting. A movie about this. And they never once told people what the movie was about. Even now, as somebody who's seen the movie, as I go back, and I did this the other night, and looked at the trailers again, I was like, these trailers didn't tell anybody what this movie was about. So you start off with something about, it's a side character of a side character. It was one that never really should have been made in the first place, and the trailers didn't do it any favors. I don't know that we should be all that surprised about 30 to 35 million, whatever the final number ends up being. I don't know if we should be all that surprised. But again, I don't think it's all that terrible either. When you take all those things into consideration, the fact that it was still able to pull in 30 plus million, I don't think it's all that terrible of a result either. And it'll be interesting to see if it has any legs or not. I'm just not sure. And Rob, I shudder to think, how low would the opening weekend have been if it wasn't for all the positive reviews and all the positive? Can you imagine how low it would have opened if it wasn't for all the big critic reviews and all that kind of stuff? We're probably looking at something that probably would have pulled in like 23 or 24 million instead of the 30s plus. Anyway, Rob, you see this. What's your analysis of this whole situation?
Well, I think you're right. In the thing that has always attracted me most to movies is the story that's being told. Do I find it, whether it's somehow, does it connect with me emotionally? The potential of the story that I'm going to see in a movie, whether it hits me emotionally, whether it hits me intellectually, however it hits me, is what gets me. It's the single thing that gets me to want to go see a movie. And like you pointed out, in this, it wasn't until, I don't know, the later TV spots that you even had an inkling of what this movie was, other than Harley Quinn's shtick. You know, the title, The Fabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, that subtitle, well, that's interesting. And okay, she's being emancipated from the Joker. But I just didn't feel that there was enough here, and I think a lot of people felt this way, that my must-see on this movie was not at the height. It wasn't where it should be. You know, my must-see should be between 85 and 100%. And it wasn't with this film, because I didn't. What was the story they're going to tell? How is it going to be any different? Like you said, she's a side character to a side character. And why should I care about her? And I think, you know, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, oh, well, you know, the all-female cast or the female director or whatever. I don't think that's the case at all. I think what's happened is that it was just a film that people weren't as excited about as everybody thought they should be. And we see this a lot in movies now. Like Blade Runner 2049, as much as I loved it, Blade Runner was never a hit. It's a cult movie at best. So when you are going to go spend almost $200 million on a Blade Runner sequel, who thought that was something, that this is something that Hollywood believes? And I think Harley Quinn was something that, okay, everyone loved her. She's a fan favorite. But she's a fan favorite within the community that talks about these things. But as far as the general audience was concerned, was she?
Good point.
Was she a fan favorite?
Yeah, and you know what? Here's an interesting thing too here. I think it was a mistake to add Birds of Prey to this. I honestly think there might have been more success if they just focused everything on Harley Quinn. Because look, I'm not going to give anything away here. But Huntress, by the way, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, can do no wrong in my opinion. I will watch anything with this lady, and I love her. But Huntress, for example, you get a couple of quick looks at her in the first part of the movie, but you don't really, in any substantive way, even really get her into the movie until you're well into the third act of the film. She's not even, like, Birds of Prey has really next to nothing to do with this film, ultimately, until you get, like, to the very end. But anyway, I don't want to give big spoiler stuff away, but I think the same thing would have happened, Rob, if they had done, like, let's take another side of a side, Victor Zsasz, right? Victor Zsasz, who, by the way, I really like the Victor Zsasz character in this movie. But, you know, if you had done a standalone Victor Zsasz movie, I don't know that the general movie-going audience would have cared. And here's the other thing, Rob, to keep in mind. A lot of us forget this, but the Harley Quinn character is a relatively, in terms of the history of comic books, a brand new newborn character. This is not a character that my grandfather and my father and I all read about. Like Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, these are all characters that are built into the fabric of pop culture and have been there for decades and decades and decades and decades. In the grand scheme of things, the Harley Quinn character is still a relatively, basically a newborn.
And
right?
came out of the animated series, I mean, it's something that is not, it's very new. The character of Harley Quinn is very new. And also, I think, look, the animated series now, people are really liking it, but I just don't.
But I don't just like the animated series. I'm obsessed with the animated series. I love the Harley Quinn animated series.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I mean, a Birds of Prey movie, why not just make it a Harley Quinn movie and make it more of a character study than it was? I mean,
yeah, I don't know. I just think, and by the way, while I did not like the film overall, I liked a lot of the individual pieces more than I thought. I liked the Victor Zsasz character. I really enjoyed Ewan McGregor as Black Mask. I know some other people had issues with that, but I really liked his Black Mask. I really liked Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, as I knew that it would. There's some decent action. Some of the action doesn't work, but some really decent action. Some pretty funny dialogue here and there. A lot of really good individual pieces, Rob, that just didn't fit together for me to make a satisfying movie, but anyway, there's probably a lot of reasons why this thing didn't do as well as some people thought. Question here is, guys, how do you feel about this? I mean, can you still consider it a win, considering that a lot of times these DC movies haven't been well received critically? This one has been very well received critically, even if not by me, but maybe it is still a win in some ways. Why do you think the Harley Quinn film, the fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, why do you feel it didn't live up to what some people's expectations were? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we got 2 more to go. So let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Jeremy Sishabu, who writes, on top of a Bambi remake, it's official that a live-action Lilo and Stitch film will premiere on Disney+. John, I know that the originals will still remain nonetheless, but do you still think this is necessary, especially since the originals are so good? Should they remake unpopular or underrated properties instead, like Treasure Planet or Atlantis? All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And for those of you who are not really sure what Jeremy's talking about, yes, indeed, they are doing a live-action remake on Disney+ of Lilo and Stitch. This comes to us from Animation Magazine, who writes, Chris Sanders, who co-wrote and directed the original film with Dean Du Bois, is expected to return to voice Stitch. The studio is still on the hunt for a director for the remake. Mike Van Wees wrote the script, and Aladdin remake producers Dan Lin and Jonathan Eric, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing his name, of Rideback are producing. They are also on board the Disney Plus Inspector Gadget movie. Zoe Kent and Louis Provost are overseeing the production for Disney. So we do have a remake, live-action remake on the way. To answer, Jeremy, your first question, is this necessary? You guys know what I'm going to say. No motion picture in the history of film has ever been necessary. There has never been a movie that had to be made. That's just my opinion. They get made because we kind of want them to be made, and maybe they can be successful, and all that. That's why it's made. No film's ever been necessary. Lilo and Stitch, though, Rob, I didn't look it up, so I can't remember how old this film is, but it's been a minute since this movie came out. I mean, we're talking at least 20 years, I think, a minimum 20 years. So it's been a minute since this came out. So why not? The question about, but the original was so good, but that's what they're banking on. They're banking on the fact that the original was so good, much like Aladdin did, and Aladdin made over $1 billion. Not all remakes do, but Aladdin did. But that's what they're banking on. They're banking on, if we remake this, a beloved property that people already have positive associations with, that has brand recognition, which is always one of the big hurdles to get over when you're trying to market any new product, be it a toy or be it a movie or be it a phone or whatever, is brand identification and brand recognition. That's a big hurdle to get over. You get something with like Lilo and Stitch, you've got a lot of that already built in. That's already built in here, Rob. So that's why you see movies like this being remade, because you can. A lot of people questioned, why do Aladdin? The first one's so great. Well, yeah, but that's part of the reason why you do another version of it, another take on it, because you want to capitalize on the fact that it's so beloved. And we got not as good as the original animated Aladdin, but in my opinion, we got a thoroughly entertaining, wonderful, fun live-action remake of Aladdin that, for the company, made over $1 billion. So that's why you do stuff like that. I think this is an interesting one. I think that what I'm more curious about is the fact that they're making it specifically for Disney Plus as opposed to theatrically. So I think that's kind of interesting. But you know what? Sign me up for at least being intrigued by this, Rob. You hear they're doing a Lilo and Stitch live action. I'm sure it's going to mix in a CGI Stitch, but how are you feeling about it?
Well, I really, I really like Lilo and Stitch.
Me too.
And the idea of it in live action does fascinate me. Like, how are they going to make Stitch? You know, how are they going to do these things? And I don't object to it. I mean, to be honest, John, I should have hated all of these live action adaptations, but ever since Cinderella, which you and I have talked about,
which you and I both love. Yeah,
I love Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella. I was like,
me too.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna go see this. I'm like, no, I really liked it a lot. And since then, sure, it's been. I didn't maybe necessarily love Beauty and the Beast, but I didn't hate it. I certainly appreciated it, and I love The Jungle Book.
Yeah, me too.
And there's been a lot of stuff that I really like.
Maleficent is a little iffy, but yeah, Jungle Book, Cinderella,
Maleficent, is a character that came from a movie. There wasn't, there wasn't a Maleficent. It wasn't one of their classics. By the way, I just looked it up. Lilo and Stitch was 2002.
So it's like 28 years.
No, it's 18.
18 years. Yeah,
18. And I kind of want to see how is it all going to work. I hope they don't have the Sonic the Hedgehog controversy, but I think that I'll watch it. I'll watch it if it's good.
Yeah, me too. So the question here is, guys, how do you feel about them doing a Lilo and Stitch live action? Are you thinking like I do, which is like, yeah, why not? Give it a shot. Maybe it'll be good, maybe it'll be bad. Or do you feel more like some other people? It's like, no, don't touch Lilo and Stitch. I don't know. How are you feeling about it? Jump down to the comment section below and leave us your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our fourth and final main topic today. And our fourth and final main topic today gets sent in to us by Logan Love Triangle, who writes, so, Deadline is reporting that the Chaos Walking film with Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley will get released January of 2021. What do you make out of this? After all the reports about how unreleasable this movie is, isn't it actually better to just let it burn? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Logan. And well, we've had these discussions before about, look, Chaos Walking was a film that, by the way, was supposed to come out March 1st of 2019. This is going to be almost 2 years after its original release date. But as we talked about a lot of times on the show, the movie was an unmitigated mess. And it was, as some of the studio people defined it as, unreleasable. Now, this comes to us from the good folks over at Deadline, who wrote this. It was determined in mid-2018 that Chaos Walking needed an estimated $15 million of reshoots. But Daisy Ridley's schedule on Star Wars movies and Tom Holland's Spider-Man and Avengers pushed those reshoots. They tried, but they could not get them done in order to make their release dates or their second release date. Last May, it was reported that Don't Breathe director Fede Alvarez was helping out with those reshoots in Atlanta while Doug Liman remained on board. To give you an idea of the delay here, March 1st, 2019, the release date was the original release date at one time. This movie has been a complete mess. It has been a complete mess. There's no way getting around that. It absolutely is. The question, though, becomes, do you just cut bait and let it go? And this is a question that's come up a number of times with movies that have reportedly been really bad and all this kind of stuff. It's like, why bother releasing it? Why not just cut your losses and move on? Because you do have to put a bunch of money into the marketing of it and all that kind of stuff. That's a big price tag. But here's why you still release it anyway. At this point, you've spent the money on making the movie. You've invested, I don't know, I don't know the number off the top of my head, Rob, but let's for argument's sake say $80 million. It's probably more, but just for argument's sake, let's just say $80 million for the hell of it. You've spent $80 million. What are you going to do now? You're just going to burn that $80 million. So the question becomes, can you release the film and then take whatever amount of money it costs to release the film and market it, can you at least make that much back at the box office? That's a much easier proposition, because as soon as you make more money than you spent on marketing, now you're eating into that $80 million of losses, and it becomes worth it to release it. Maybe you don't break even, but right now you're looking at an $80+ million loss. Can you mitigate that loss by putting the movie out in theaters? With Daisy Ridley, Tom Holland, a sci-fi kind of thriller idea, I think if you spent $40 or $50 million on marketing this thing, I believe they can easily at least make that much back, and then they can start cutting into those losses. They'll probably still end up losing money, but they'll end up losing less money by releasing it than they would by just letting it burn on the shelf. And listen, I'm fascinated to see this film at this point. I mean,
me too.
I mean, so what? And I like Doug Liman as a director very much. I love Fede Alvarez. We love Tom Holland. I really like Daisy Ridley. I like the concept of it. So I think, yeah, it's a no, at least Rob, that's how I see it. I see it as a no-brainer to release this film. How do you feel about it?
Well, like you, I feel the same way. And also, with the people involved in doing the reshoots, what if it turns out to be pretty good? You know, what if it's a film that we're treating it like this is just a slow-moving car crash, and that there's nothing redeemable about it? But with the talent involved and the actors involved, and the fact that they have Fede Alvarez coming in, I love Don't Breathe, you know, and maybe he's adding, and Lyman's still involved, and there's something going on there that maybe they're able to. Look, movies are very iterative, and a lot of the time when movies don't work, we don't necessarily hear about it, and they go back and they make them work in post-production. That's
World
what they
War
do.
Z. World War Z is a great example of a film that was a disaster. They did a bunch of reshoots, redid the entire second and third act almost, and that movie ended up pretty good.
Yeah, and so what if this turns out to be pretty good? And, you know, if movies, they're part of, Lionsgate will own it. It'll be part of its catalog. They can make maybe money back foreign. I mean, you can't just let something burn on the shelf. But, man, you know, they borrow money to make movies. The studios don't just sit on piles of money, and the interest charges are racking up. You know, it's never good when you have a movie that's delayed this long. So we'll see. But I hope for the best. I like everybody involved, and I want it to be a good movie.
All right, question here is, guys, how do you feel about this? Do you feel like, yeah, at some point you just got to say, let's just give up on this movie, throw it away? Do you feel like we do? It's like, hey, maybe you can redeem it with those reshoots and you got to make some of that money back. How are you feeling about Chaos Walking right now? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, with all that down and out of the way, we're going to move on to take your live questions now. But before we do get to the live questions, as we do every day here on the show, Robert and I are now going to take just a little bit of a short break. We're going to take a 4-minute break here, give ourselves a chance to rest the vocal cords, stretch the legs, refill our drinks, give you a chance to run and use the bathroom as we continue on with the live questions. So I'm sure you guys are going to want to talk about Oscars and Harley Quinn and all this kind of stuff. So if you guys will just indulge us for just a minute, hang tight, don't go anywhere, and we will be right back. are back. Thank you guys for your patience and indulgence as we went and took a bit of a break there. Let's now get things rolling here with your live questions. And we're going to get things started here with Suthius, who writes, the place you ate at on Kitchen Nightmares has closed. Yeah, so I was in an episode of Kitchen Nightmares, and it was really, really good, but that was a number of years ago, and apparently after about 5 years, they did close down, which is unfortunate to hear. Also, John writes, hey, John, wrote in the top 5 Nolan movies, Tenet, it has already happened, was a joke based on the line Washington said in his I get it. Also, I figure if Die Hard is a Christmas movie, then I figure it might as well be a Nolan movie. I get it, because he wrote in the other day, and he said, yeah, I put Die Hard as one of my favorite Christopher Nolan movies. I'm like, what? And then I get it. Hey, if people call it a Christmas movie, you might as well call it a Christopher Nolan movie. I get it. Well said, John. Well said. Thanks for clearing that up. All right, Jonathan writes, my quick movie review of Birds of Prey. Didn't dislike it as much as you. Well, I didn't hate it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I didn't hate Birds of Prey or anything like that. Didn't dislike it as much as you, but I admit it's an incoherent mess, but undeniably fun. Wish they fleshed out characters. Felt like a backdoor pilot. Had fun, though. Also, Ella J. Bosco, grade B-. Yeah, I didn't hate the movie. I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was terrible. I didn't regret my life choices after seeing it or anything like that. It just didn't work for me. That's all. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Jonathan. And clearly a lot of the critics liked it as well. So, hey, it's strong. All right, Jonathan also writes, unpopular opinion. I prefer The Dark Knight Rises over The Dark Knight. This movie was my first must-see. No spoilers. Exciting movie. Also, unpopular opinion, Nolan's Batman trilogy is my favorite trilogy ever. I acknowledge it there. I mean, I don't know if it's that unpopular of an opinion. There's a bunch of people out there that The Dark Knight is their favorite trilogy. Anyway, I acknowledge there are better ones, but in my opinion, The Dark Knight trilogy impacted me the most, made me love Batman. Everyone loves the Star Wars trilogy or Indiana Jones, but I'm in the minority and saying I love the Dark Knight trilogy more than any other trilogy ever. Trilogy as a whole, A+. Rob, when you hear people talk about the Dark Knight trilogy as a whole, I hear a lot of people that absolutely love the trilogy as a whole. What did you think about it, and how do you think people view it in terms of trilogies of all time?
Well, I'm a huge fan of the Dark Knight trilogy. I love Batman Begins. I obviously really, really love the Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises is an imperfect movie to me, but it's incredibly ambitious, and it strives for so much. I mean, my only problems with it are certain plot holes that I find it difficult to get around. Like, if someone took over a stock exchange and clearly was doing illegal trades, I don't think they would let those trades stand. And then the idea that Bruce Wayne has lost all of his wealth and they've turned off his power immediately always seems so silly. I mean, even I know from my younger days when you haven't paid your power bill, you got at least a month and a half, maybe you can get by. And then the cops were buried underground for 100 days or something. But despite that, it is such an ambitious, sprawling trilogy and the way it approaches the Batman mythos, I do love it. Is it the best trilogy of all time? I can't go there because there's too many imperfections, but it is certainly a monumental achievement, not just in one movie, but in 3 movies. And I enjoy them all, really.
Yeah, I like all 3 of them. Again, The Dark Knight Rises is my least favorite of the 3. It is my least favorite of the 3, but a very, very strong trilogy overall, no doubt. All right, Murray Reich writes, saw Birds of Prey, and I had no expectations for it, and despite the positive reviews, this movie was just okay. Harley Quinn was the best part, but she couldn't save the movie. Story, plot was meh. I guess all the men in this movie are dicks, because that's what was shown. Well, I mean, look. It bothers me. It bothers me when we see a regular action movie. Let's take, I don't know, Commando. Let's take Arnold Schwarzenegger's Commando, just for argument's sake, right? Your hero is Arnold Schwarzenegger. Guess what? All the villains are guys. All the villains are guys in Commando. They're all guys. But nobody complains, the men are dicks. Well, no, it's just that all the villains in this particular movie were here, but nobody complains about it. So here we have another movie, except instead of Arnold being the hero, we have Margot Robbie as the hero. And just like in almost every Arnold movie, all the villains were guys. But now we complain about that when we don't complain about it all the other time. So, but anyway, And it's not like there were a ton of them in there. Yeah, Black Mask, Victor Zsasz, they were the villains. I get it. And you know what? There were more things I liked about the movie Murray. I liked Margot Robbie like you did, but I also really liked Ewan McGregor as Black Mask. And I don't know the actor's name, but the dude who played Victor Zsasz, I actually really like. I thought the dynamic between Black Mask and Victor Zsasz was one of my favorite things about the movie, to be honest. I whenever they were just talking to each other, I don't know why, I just dug the dynamic. So anyway, there's that. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, MCU, we like to do fake deaths. Fast and Furious, hold our beer. Well, there are some people who love that fake death, Rob.
Yes, I do.
I think you're still celebrating the return of Han, are you not?
Dude, I'm so excited. And if you actually read the numbers, it was reported how the numbers on the people that watched the trailer, it was one of the most watched trailers ever. People love it. I saw that Jen Yamato actually did a video piece with Sung Kang. It's like Sung's Garage or something, talking about Justice for Han. So, I'm very excited. They can't bring him back from the dead enough, as far as I'm concerned.
Can't bring him back enough. All right, Sprinkle writes, a recommendation, Whale Rider's really good. 2002, Keisha Castle Huesis, I'm sure I mispronounced your name, youngest Best Actress nominee until Beasts of the Southern Wild with Quvenzhané Wallis, claimed the title 12-year-old girl who longs to become the chief of her tribe, position that is reserved for probably makes, I thought you probably meant males there. Whale Rider is a wonderful film. It is a wonderful film. And actually, one I enjoyed a lot when it came out. I remember I used to talk about it a lot when it came out. Actually, I think I might have done a movie review of that in my earliest website attempt. My earliest website attempt ever, even before the movie blog, was a website I did called moviereviews.net. It's not around anymore, but me and some of my buddies, but I believe that's the first place that I reviewed it. And I liked it quite a bit. Rob, did you ever have a chance to see Whale Rider?
I loved Whale Rider. Yeah, I thought it was a terrific movie. And, anybody who's been to New Zealand or has an interest in, say, Maori culture, and it's a lovely, lovely, lovely film. And I couldn't recommend it highly enough. It also has a great soundtrack.
All right, next up here, we got Suthius who writes, in recent years, GalaxyCon has made its way to Richmond, Virginia. Never have I seen so many notable names in our state. Tom Welling and Rosebaum, Michael Roker and John Bernthal, Sean Gunn, LeVar Burton, Lex Luger, Peter Cullen and Welker, Mr. Shatner, and a few others. Wow, it's really becoming a popular thing, and this is a good thing, where a lot of these conventions are getting around to more and more cities, and more of these people are getting involved in them. Like, listen, Rob, honestly, a lot of these folks make a lot of income every year traveling around and going to these various conventions. And that's great. I mean, they go to these things, they make some good income from it. Fans in different cities and states get to go and meet and see some of their favorite people from their stuff. I think it's a win-win. How do you feel about that whole growing thing?
I think it's a win-win too. I mean, remember, whether it's going to conventions or now Cameo, you can request greetings from Cameo. I think, look, being able to connect, how else would you connect with these people if you weren't seeing them at a convention? And I've always believed that, look, if you want to get an autograph, why shouldn't you pay for it? I mean, these people are not, this is their job. It's they're as much as we might love them, it's still a job, and they're still being required to give of their time. And I've actually met some great people at conventions that I wouldn't have met otherwise, that I've maintained friendships with over the years. And I think it's a great way to connect with people that you're fans of.
All right. Ben Rayner writes in, I like Birds of Prey a lot, but in my opinion, Birds of Prey was an R-rated movie with a B-level comic book character. Movie is a sequel coming off of a meh movie at best with Suicide Squad. Put that all together, and I think you've got a disappointing opening. Hopefully it will have legs. And Rob, I think that's probably one of the elements here that we haven't taken into consideration. It is, in essence, a spin-off sequel of Suicide Squad, which, while overperforming financially, is not exactly a beloved movie. I think I liked it. I think I liked it more than most people did, but maybe that's one of the elements here that we're not taking consideration, was that, hey, look, this is a continuation of Suicide Squad. Not a people loved it. How do you feel?
I feel exactly the same way. I mean, I hated Suicide Squad. I couldn't, I hated the editing. It was really, for me, it was really difficult to watch. And when I found out they brought in a trailer company to edit the film, I'm like, well, that makes sense. But I really was very disappointed in that film, and I did like Harley Quinn, but obviously when you look at the trailers, so much was cut out. I couldn't help but what about this scene? What about that scene that we saw in the trailers? And I'm sure there was a lot more Joker in it, and I just found it really disappointing, which it's always tempered my enthusiasm for the Harley Quinn character. To me, has always been a gimmick character anyway. And, I was kind of hoping that, I don't know, maybe they'll do what they did. People said it's like the female Deadpool, but I don't think that's what it is.
No, it really isn't. And I heard that comparison as well, and it really isn't. Mr. TJ Lynn writes, Spielberg is your all-time best director. He is indeed, but you never mention who's at number 2 and number 3, because I very rarely do lists. If today someone asked you to fill those positions, who would you choose among this list? Kubrick, Gibson, Tarantino, Scorsese, Coppola, Cameron, Nolan, Eastwood, Affleck, Scott? I don't. I just don't. I purposely never said who my number 2, number 3, because I will do lists sometimes. I generally don't like doing lists normally. It is enough to say that I believe Steven Spielberg, and this is just speaking for myself as a fan, Steven Spielberg is the greatest filmmaker of all time. For me, I have never said who my number 2 or number 3 is, because I really don't even in my own head list it. I really don't. So if somebody said, if I had to choose among the lists, I honestly don't know. I mean, they're all brilliant. They're all brilliant. Scorsese, Coppola, Tarantino, Gibson, Kubrick, Cameron, Nolan, Eastwood. I mean, and we could add about 20 more names to that. They're all just brilliant. But yeah, the reason I've never mentioned number 2 or 3 is because even in my own head, I don't have a number 2 and 3. It's just I have Spielberg, and then I have all these other fantastic directors. All right, Willow writes, I thought the trailers for Birds of Prey were terrible and really hampered my interest in the movie. Do you feel that the marketing department dropped the ball here, or is the movie just difficult to market? Honestly, Willow, I feel like it's a little bit of both. Again, from the very beginning, Rob, I thought this was a mistake of a movie to make. I didn't think this was the right movie to make, but the trailers certainly didn't do it any favors. I didn't think the trailers were terrible, but they didn't do the movie any real favors either. And again, realizing they didn't even really tell the audience what movie they were getting per se. Right. So I don't know. How would you address that?
Well, I think that you're absolutely right. I don't think they did a good job marketing the film, giving people a reason why is this story essential for your life? and I really think that's what a good trailer does. A good trailer hooks you. It gives you enough setup and enough character development to know that, oh, I want to know. Basically, a trailer should make you want to wonder what happens next. What's going to happen to this character? I need to see this movie. That's what a trailer needs to do. And I never felt that way with any of the advertising at all. It was all arch and comedic. And I'm like, okay, I get that. But how is this movie more than that? And I never felt they sold me on that.
But you know what? Even if you didn't like it, even if whatever, it's not going to be long. Patty Jenkins has her Wonder Woman 84 coming, and I'm sure that's going to put everything right back on the right rails. Patty Jenkins we trust. All right, next up, Jersey Kid writes, just started a new position. It feels good to contribute again. That's awesome, Jersey Kid. Congratulations on the new job, man. New jobs are always fun. It's always fun to get a new job. So this week I saw The Giver, Spider-Man Far From Home, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, RoboCop 2014. By the way, unpopular opinion, I dig the RoboCop 2014. Not nearly as good as the original, but I kind of dug it. Anyway, Monkey Kingdom, The Kitchen, Countdown, Judy. Which was favorite? Mine is Spider-Man. Out of that group, well, certainly not The Kitchen. My favorite out of that group, I would have to probably say, I got to go with you as well. I got to say Spider-Man Far From Home is probably my favorite out of that particular group. Rob, when you're looking at this list of particular films, which one stands out to you? Which is your favorite out of that one?
God, dude, I don't know. It's hard to say. Do I have a favorite? Do I have to say one?
No, you don't have to.
I mean, it's tough. I feel like now we make these judgments so quickly, and I try and find something to like in all movies, even movies I don't particularly like, because I know how hard it is to make films.
Right.
I mean, maybe I'm just getting, in my old age, I'm getting a little softer.
Tell me what you love most about Star Trek Into Darkness.
Why'd you have to?
I'm doing you dirty, Rob. I'm doing you dirty.
What I loved about that, I'll give you the pat answer when the end credits were over. No, I'll tell you something. I as much as the J.J. Abrams gets made fun of for lens flares and things like that, I do think the technical people that he surrounds himself with are the best in the world. So when you watch a J.J. Abrams movie, at least you're getting a handsome, beautiful looking, finished piece of work. And it's certainly, they're very watchable. It's only when they're over and I'm seething with anger that I'm completely overcome by complete utter hatred. But while you're watching them, I find them intriguing. I give them the benefit of the doubt. But man, Into Darkness.
All right. Next up, Henri Martins writes, "Hey, John, which series finale do you prefer? Seinfeld or Friends?" Oh, that's easy. Friends. Fan of Seinfeld, but disliked how it retreaded past characters, leaving a shorter screen time for the main cast. Friends finale was predictable, but well executed. Your thoughts? Thanks. I thought, first of all, Seinfeld to me was the better show, but it was a terrible series finale. And I didn't even mind it because it was bringing back in, it was kind of a retrospective of the entire series. I didn't mind that approach. That approach wasn't bad. It was the execution of it. It just felt weird the whole time through. And the whole approach they took of, oh, they're literally on trial for being bad people. And it just didn't work. The Friends finale, on the other hand, while predictable, the Friends finale, it was a logical and very natural feeling wrapping up of the Friends story, you know? And so I thought because of that, I thought the Friends finale was definitely the better finale. But overall, I prefer Seinfeld as a show. So anyway, good observation there, Henry. All right, K Major writes, how shocked were you to see Eminem? I was shocked as hell. Listen, on Twitter, I just literally tweeted out, what? With exclamation points. But listen, it was definitely a fun moment though, right? Like you say, whenever they put the camera to the audience, like they're like everybody's getting into Eminem doing that song.
I loved, it was kind of a generational thing. You know, you're seeing that everybody who grew up with that. And I loved it. I too was mouthing the words, you know, and I thought that was a great moment. I like how
after the initial shock, then it was like, wait a minute, what? Why are they bringing it? Then you realize, oh yeah, he never actually did perform this when it won an Academy Award. And so yeah, there you go. It worked, but I was very surprised. Surprised.
But I think I liked seeing the people's reaction to it even as much as I liked the performance.
Yeah. Okay. Vomit on sweater already, mom spaghetti. Anyway, yes. Murray Reich writes, Parasite, well-deserved 4 Oscar wins. So much for people complaining Oscars, only whites. Well, I mean, look, again, to me, it's the issue with that whole thing is not that the Oscars don't nominate enough people who aren't white. The problem is Hollywood as a whole system has not given enough opportunities to people to make those movies to then elevate up to being things. As a matter of fact, you know, Mahershala Ali was one of the presenters last night. He's a 2-time Academy Award winner. And, you know, and by the way, Parasite, I'm already reading some people saying Parasite was just given the award because they wanted to make a statement. No, Parasite was one of the best films of the year. Like, you take away Jojo Rabbit from me, it was the best film of the year. It's a remarkable film. It won because it deserved to win. That's why it won. Again, there is an issue, Murray. There is an issue. I just think people are misplacing the blame. The blame is not the Oscars. The blame is the Hollywood system as a whole, not giving enough opportunity to make those films that then can elevate up and inspire new generations and all that kind of stuff to the point where there's more to select from for an academy of films and artists that do make them. So I think that's where the problem lies, not the Oscars themselves. All right, TJ Lynn writes, words cannot describe how amazingly happy I am that Parasite won both Best Picture and Director, because for me, it's the #1 film of the year, and not far off from me. To me, it was #2. I love this film. It's the movie that I supported all along. What a bittersweet ending for the Oscar show this year. I don't know that it was anything bitter about the ending of the Oscar show this year, but I mean, again, I thought the biggest problem this year, Rob, was going to be the overall predictability. And there certainly was a lot of predictability because, you know, Joaquin Phoenix deserved it. Renee Zellweger deserved it. Laura Dern deserved it. Brad Pitt deserved it. Yeah, but to get a real nice surprise in there. The Bong Joon-ho wins were totally surprised, but I thought it added to the show overall. How did you feel?
I felt the same way. I mean, I think other than Best Foreign Film, which we all thought it was a complete shoo-in, the screenplay award the original screenplay award was a shock to me. The Best Director award was a shock to me, and
absolutely
the Best Picture. So 3 huge awards, which were it was amazing. And the gratitude and his speeches and listening to his interpreter, to be honest, I really liked all of that. You forget that movies are truly a worldwide art form, and for the Academy to recognize a film from South Korea in such a grand way was important. And it wasn't because Oscar's so woke. It was because it was deserving of those accolades. The people that have seen this movie, that really love this movie, have been deeply affected by it. And that's what all great cinema does. So let's see it get rewarded. And it did. And it was great.
All right. Let's see. Next up here, Murray Reich writes, Han got snubbed. Han got snubbed. All right. The More You Know writes, every Batman film from 1989 to present that featured a Joker has won an Oscar award. What did the Michael Keaton win? I guess it might have won a couple of technical awards. I never thought about that.
You mean Birdman?
No. The Michael Keaton's Batman film.
Oh,
because that had Joker in it, so I guess it must have won a technical award or two.
I don't. That's a really good question. Let's see, John. I want to find out.
All right, tell you what. You look that up while I move on to the next question. We'll come back to that. Interesting thing to throw in there. The more you know. All right. Amin writes, a great night. I got 21 out of 24 right. Happy for Parasite. I ended up getting 19, so you beat me by a couple. Happy for Parasite, even though I thought 1917 would take it, and I personally wanted Ford v Ferrari to win. Parasite was in my top 10. It's good and fun to have surprises. Scorsese and The Irishman went home empty-handed. Yes, it did, but I don't think anybody should be completely surprised that it went home empty-handed, because I don't really see that it was the by far favorite in any of the categories. Like, we all knew that Scorsese was most likely not going to win Best Director. We knew Irishman was not going to win Best Picture. We knew that Brad Pitt was going to win Best Supporting Actor, so that took out Pacino and took out Pesci. We knew that it was unlikely to win Screenplay. We knew that it had a chance at visual effects, but it was very unlikely. So, yeah, it went home empty-handed. But I don't know that it can be looked at as a disappointing performance because, again, going into it, I don't think it was the favorite in any category. So, hey, listen, it's still a hugely successful Oscars for The Irishman because it got so much Oscar love. It got so many nominations for a little Netflix. It's not little, but for a Netflix film getting that much. And by the way, Laura Dern wins Netflix's first acting Academy Awards for Marriage Stories as well. Anyway, Rob, what were you able to come up with on that Batman stuff?
Batman was nominated and won one Academy Award for Best Art Direction and Set Direction, and it was won by Anton Furst and Peter Young. And it was nominated for one Golden Globe Award, and that was for Jack Nicholson's performance as Joker.
So as they mentioned, every single Batman motion picture with a Joker in it has won at least one Academy Award.
Yep.
There you go. That's the formula now for Warner Brothers. Put Joker in every single movie now. All right, let's see here. What's next up? Mr. TJ Lynn writes, I'm almost in tears when she announced Parasite to win Best Picture. By the way, Jane Fonda is 82 years old. I was stunned at that when they said, not just because she looked great, because a lot of people, like I tweeted out, Rob, last night, guys, Jane Fonda's 82. And inevitably, like a bunch of people, it's all cosmetic surgery and blah, blah, blah. But I'm not just talking about how her face looks. Look at how she moves. Look at how she carries herself. She moves like somebody who's like in her late 50s and still plays tennis. Like I'm watching, I'm like, holy crap, I hope I move and I'm able to like just be as coherent and everything as she is at 82, like half as good as she is. Anyway, that's beside the point. Let's get on to the thing here. When she announced Parasite to win Best Picture, because it's extremely rare that my pick for Best Picture of the Year got nominated, let alone win. Parasite is my Best Picture of the Year, and I'm happy the 92-year-old Oscars felt so too. It is, listen, there were, Rob, a number of films last night that Had they won, no complaints from me. If 1917 had won, which I thought was going to, no complaints from me. It's my third best film of the year, but it's so incredibly good. If it won Best Picture, awesome. Obviously, my number one picture of the year, Jojo Rabbit. Parasite was my number two picture of the year. I would have been totally thrilled and surprised if Ford v Ferrari had won. There were very, very few films on that list that, first of all, there were no films nominated that I felt didn't deserve a nomination. Other than maybe Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I liked, but I didn't like that much. But there were very, very few films on that list that I would have raised an eyebrow if it had won. You know what I mean? There were about 5 films on that nominee list that had they won, I'm perfectly good with them. And Parasite was definitely one of them. What do you think this means moving forward, Rob, particularly for a Bong Joon-ho? Do you think, he continues to make films in Korea, or do you think there are going to be Hollywood studios now that start coming after him?
Well, Bong Joon-ho he's a writer-director, and I think that, I keep thinking back what happened to John Woo, who's one of my favorite Hong Kong directors. They brought him over to America. He made Hard Target with Jean-Claude Van Damme, and they didn't like the John Woo-ism of it all. And I just think, they've brought over other directors from Korea, and I think, look, Bong Joon-ho is a completely unique voice, and I hope, look, I'm sure every Hollywood studio would love to get him to make a Hollywood movie. And indeed, perhaps he could. I think he'd be great at it. If you look at The Host, or you look at Snowpiercer, or even Parasite, The Man, or Memories of Murder, he is an incredible, diverse director in terms of the stories that he can tell. He can cross genres. But I don't know if you'd want him to make some studio programmer. I mean, I think the reason he's so good is because he is a visionary writer-director. And I would hope he continues to do that.
All right. Let's keep moving here. Next one up comes us from Chad Shreves, who writes, even though I had Parasite 5th on my list of Best Picture nominees, I still have 0 complaints, and it was well-deserved. Again, Chad, a testimony to just how good the films were this year. That there were a number of films on that nominee list that I think a lot of us would have been in agreement of, all right, maybe not the film I would personally pick to win, but it's so good, it's not like it's a travesty if it does win, and absolutely, and I was very, very happy for my number 2 film of the year to actually take that spot. It was great. All right, James Germain writes, hey, John, is it me or am I the only one excited that Matrix 4 has already started filming? I saw some set pics the other day of Neo standing in a crowd, not quite what I expected, wondering what are your thoughts? I don't care about Matrix 4.
What?
I don't care about Matrix 4. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. Man. That can totally change. Once I start seeing trailers and I start getting a feel for the movie. That can totally change. But honestly, Rob, look, you and I have had this conversation before.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, after Matrix 1, they went downhill in quality, and they went downhill quickly. Now, I am one of the few people that actually likes Matrix Reloaded. I like Matrix 2. But a lot of people don't. But even though I liked it, it was a major step down from the first Matrix. And then Matrix Revolution just fell off the cliff. And then, to be quite honest with you, with maybe 1 or 2 minor exceptions, everything that the Wachowskis did after that, I didn't like. Particularly one of the worst films I've ever seen in my life, in Jupiter Ascending.
Come on, man.
It's a true, listen, I saw Jupiter Ascending in a double feature with that and Jeff Bridges' The Seventh Son, and I preferred Seventh Son. That's how bad Jupiter Ascending was. And so considering that after the first Matrix, they just dropped off the cliff in quality, and I have really not liked, with 1 or 2 little exceptions, I really haven't liked anything they did after that. I have no reason to be excited about Matrix 4 at this point. So I'm not closing my mind off to it, though. Once they start showing some trailers, I'll reevaluate everything. But for right now, I just can't feel excited. How are you feeling about it?
Look, I agree that the Matrix Revolutions and Matrix Reloaded did drop in quality. Like you, I liked Reloaded quite a bit, and I've come to like it even more over the years. Is it as tightly packed and well plotted and as the Matrix? Certainly not. But I think there's a lot in both movies that are pretty incredible from a filmmaking standpoint. They don't hold together. There was such a high bar. And I liked Cloud Atlas. I liked Speed Racer, which I really liked. I couldn't believe Speed Racer was I liked as much as I liked. And I have a soft spot for Jupiter Ascending, John.
No.
I
Oh my
do. I
God.
do. I
All
do.
film is
And
subjective.
it's a Disney princess movie in space. It's Disney princesses meet Dune. But I want The Matrix 4 to be great. I really do. I'm hoping that with new effects technology, I want to see what's going on. I think they probably decided to make it. I think it's Lana Wachowski's directing it, and I hope she has a fantastic idea. I want it to be good. I so do, John. I so do.
Well, so do I. I hope it's great. I hope I love it. I hope I hope it's fabulous and worthy of the original. I'm just saying right now, I don't see enough stuff there to literally be excited about yet. I've got a lot of reasons not to be excited, but I'm hoping again that it turns out great and that we love it and it's a return to form and all that sorts of good stuff. Fingers crossed. I'm just not there yet. Hopefully I'll get there. But anyway, Rob, that takes us to the time, your time limit here today. I guess we got to let you go. So, Rob, in the meantime, thank you so much for being here, dude. Where can people go and find you and your exploits online in the meantime before you're back again tomorrow?
You can find me at Twitter at BurnettRM. Find me on my own name, Robert Meyer Burnett, on Instagram, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and my show, Robservations, the show about something.
Dude, it is always such a pleasure and honor having you here, my friend, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Looking forward to it.
All right, have a good one, dude. With that down, we're going to keep on going with your questions. So let's keep on motoring here with, I can't think of a good username. And by the way, there's a question we skipped over, Suthius, because I think I'm trying to do you a favor by skipping over the last question you sent in. So there you go. All right. I can't think of a good username writes, why has Joker gotten a Razzie nomination? Well, remember, the Razzies are tongue-in-cheek. The Razzies should not be taken seriously. They're just fun, tongue-in-cheek. They kind of made a category just for Joker, so I wouldn't worry about it at all. All right. E writes, there are the classic combos, peanut butter and jelly. I don't like jelly, by the way. Anyway, bacon and eggs, not ketchup and eggs. But there's also a movie and dinner. John, I asked a girl from school to a movie, then dinner, and oh my, do the two go perfectly. It was great, so thank you. Well done, E, for taking the sage advice of John Campea, Love Doctor. The doctor is in, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know what E is talking about, I have always been a proponent and been an advocate of the idea. You do not do dinner and then a movie. That's terrible, especially for a first date. Because you go to dinner, it's your first date, it can be a little bit awkward, and then you end your evening by sitting in silence together. What you do is you go to a movie first, so you create a shared experience together. Now you both just watch this movie together, and then you go to dinner or drinks. And now you've got a common reference point to start conversations with about the things you laughed about or cried about or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it's just that way you're ending off your evening interacting with each other. So remember, guys, don't do the amateur thing. Don't do dinner and a movie. If you're going out on a first date, you do a movie, then dinner. It's the way to go. Well done, E. All right. Darth Scorn writes, John, thank you and the whole crew for everything you do. A good friend of mine died last night. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, dude. Or at least on Saturday. And your show helps me get through the tough times. Keep it up. And so sorry to hear that, Darth. I mean, I've lost a couple of friends in the last few years, obviously. And it's never fun. And, you know, movies are not only cathartic in many ways, but the movies, like when I think of my friend Brendan who died, I just instantly think, I don't know why, I always go back and I think about him and I going to see that first Michael Keaton movie, one of the first movies I ever went to without my parents. But me and my buddy Brendan, we took the bus downtown. Which we were kind of young, but we took the bus downtown. We went to Jackson Square in Hamilton, Ontario, and we went to a little movie theater in there, stood in a huge lineup and watched Batman. And it's really cool that the world of movies can give us that catharsis at the same time when we think back on it as well. So I'm really glad that the film fan community can be that for you as well, Darth. So again, deepest sympathies, my friend, deepest sympathies. All right, next up here, we got Sulpai N who writes, in honor of Parasite winning Best Picture, here are some more South Korean films that I would recommend watching. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil, 2019, Psychokinesis, Burning, 2018. I like Burning a lot. Oakjaw, which is wonderful. I believe you can find that on Netflix right now. The Handmaiden, 2016. I haven't seen that. And Sunny, 2011. And you know, a really interesting one that Rob brought up earlier is the monster movie. Oh, why am I forgetting the name of it now? The monster movie from like 2000. Now I got to go over and look it up because we were just talking about it. Let me just pull it up here quickly. The Host, that was it. The Host, 2006 movie, The Host, which, listen, don't be thrown off by it. The visual effects of that, when you see that movie, when you watch The Host, it's a really fun little monster movie. But when you go back and watch it, remember, this movie was from 2006. Just keep that in mind and really appreciate just how good the visual effects were for that movie. That's 14 years ago. 14 years ago. So just keep that in mind when you go see it, but it's a really, really fun one. So go back and watch that one. All right. Ryan Trabuco writes, hope you had a great weekend, John. I did have a tremendous weekend. Had some great UFC fights on Saturday, even though Dominic Reyes got totally robbed by the judges, but whatever. It was still a great fight. And then, of course, the Oscars last night. Had a great time. My thoughts were with you during the entire extra segment dedicated to all the songs throughout the years. Also proud of my Oscar ballot. So here's a $17 tip for all the ones I got right out of 24 categories. That's a good one, man, especially when you consider all the smaller categories. Like, I remember this one year. I've only been to one Oscar party, Ryan, where somebody got a perfect score. I think it was my friend Chris got a perfect score. He works for Variety now, so he's a film journalist, so you expect him to do well. But Chris got a perfect score at an Oscar party once. I think it's the only time I've ever seen. So 17 is pretty damn good, Ryan. 17 is pretty damn good. So thank you for supporting the channel on that level, man. All right, Sam O'Neill writes, new Star Wars documentary on Disney Plus, highly recommended. I'm not familiar with it. Hold a second. Star Wars documentary? Hold a second. Disney Plus Star Wars documentary. I am not familiar. Empire of Dreams. Oh, yeah, but Empire of Dreams has been around for a while. Unless you're talking about a new one. Empire of Dreams is actually around for a while, but it's good to know that it's on there. Matsive Jada writes, Oscars were full of rich types like in Parasite. Well, no, that's not true. Like, a lot of the people who win those awards are not rich types, just so you know. But I mean, a lot of the big ones, sure, of course. But a lot of the smaller ones, no. But that's like saying any sports award show. Well, yeah, all the professional athletes are super rich. I don't see how that's an observation. Anyway, Loki is my favorite, writes. Thrilled with Parasite and Joaquin, but again, so disappointed with In Memoriam. Did it seem that there were a lot more people behind the scenes than actors listed? I didn't see Billy Drago, Sue Lyon, Michael G. Pollard, Sig Heil. Song was awful. I don't think the song was awful. I had issues, but whatever. Also, Luke Perry. Luke Perry didn't get mentioned, but remember, what the In Memoriam is not about, let's just put up famous people. That's not what In Memoriam is supposed to be about. This is the movie world. And this movie Hollywood industry celebrating those people who make the movies happen. And a lot of times these behind the scenes people are 10 times more important than the famous people in front of the camera. And remember, this is also the Academy, so they were also honoring like their own membership, like people who were Academy Award winners. That's why you get a Kobe Bryant. He was an Academy Award winner. So I was not disappointed at all. Yes, there were some notable people missing, but that's true every year. Every year there's always somebody missing. And if they included those people, then somebody else would come up with another list of missing names. I mean, it just is what it is. I didn't feel this year there was any egregious missing names. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there were some notable missing names, but nothing egregious to me. But yeah, the people behind the cameraman are oftentimes far more important than the people in front of the camera, and to honor them and the work that they do for making the industry what it is, I believe that's important and great. And it's not just for famous faces and famous names. So that's how I feel about that at any rate. All right. Russell Amador writes, I used to think my life was a tragedy, but now I realize it's a comedy. Wow. Joaquin, these past few months swept up all the best actor awards, but none sweeter than the Oscar last night. Let's see if, if concrete info will come out about a sequel now. I don't think him winning the Oscar is going to have any impact, positively or negatively. Honestly, I don't think him winning last night is going to negatively affect what's going to happen with a sequel, if a sequel happens, or positively. I really don't. I think it's already been determined what's going to happen. I just don't think we know yet. There were a lot of reports that they were going to do a sequel. I hope they don't do a sequel. There should not be a sequel to this movie. I 100% believe there should not be a sequel to Joker. It kind of, a sequel undermines the nature of what that movie is. So I personally don't feel they should. However, even though I don't feel they should do a sequel, I have to acknowledge that that with the movie making $1 billion, oh my God, of course they're going to find a way to do one. I don't think they should. I think doing one undermines the very nature of what that Joker movie is. But it made $1 billion. How do you not make another one? So we're just going to have to see. But I don't think him winning the Academy Award last night will positively or negatively affect the outcome of it one way or the other. But we'll see. All right. But yeah, well-deserved. Well-deserved win last night. All right. R. Lee writes, Parasite winning Best Foreign Film, no surprise. Yeah, that was a lock. It was deserving. I was surprised to see it win Best Picture. Shouldn't Best Pick be reserved for American films? I'm only talking category, not the film. No, Best Picture has always been open to every film. But the fact of the matter is like the outside of the Hollywood system, it's been very, very, very rare for foreign film to break into that. And it's very difficult for foreign film to break into that. And so they created a category to recognize, as an academy, the contributions of worldwide filmmaking. This isn't some tiny little niche. We're talking about worldwide filmmaking. They put together a category to recognize like all the huge amount of film that is created worldwide and all that kind of stuff. Part of the reason is to encourage the development of worldwide filmmaking so you can get what we got last night, a South Korean film winning Best Picture at the Academy Awards. And so that's kind of what it's there for. So no, it has always been open to everybody and to everything. But it's just that, the development, Hollywood wants to develop filmmaking around the world and encourage filmmaking around the world. And that's why it's been a part of it. And it's culminated in what we saw last night. All right. Brad Canfield writes, I'm just curious if Robert is just as annoyed as I am by Michelle Hurd's character calling the great Jean-Luc Picard, then false. It's like, where's the rest of your sentence? Sorry. I'm curious, it continues on, if Robert is just as annoyed as I am by Michelle Hurd's character calling the great Admiral Jean-Luc Picard by JL. I cringed every single time. I doubt Robert would have been annoyed by that if it's consistent with the character. Remember, if it's consistent with that character and the relationship that character had with that individual, because remember, if I'm thinking of the right character, which by the way, I haven't seen the latest episode yet. But that character, when we first run into them interacting with Jean-Luc Picard, she wanted to kill him. She does not like him. She didn't care for him at all. So depending on the relationship between the two characters, it may make sense. So I don't know. Remember, to the characters inside the world, he's not the great Jean-Luc Picard, depending on what your experience with that character is to the other character. So, but again, I haven't seen the episode myself yet. Maybe I'll see it and it'll annoy me. So I can't say that it won't because I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to try to catch up on that in the next day or two. All right, let's see here. Baby Boy 8603 writes, Hey John, gotta be honest with you, movies such as Parasite really doesn't catch my attention, but after all the buzz at the Oscars last night, I decided to watch it. I can see why it won the top 3 major awards. It really surprised me on how good it is. Listen, Baby Boy, no. Don't apologize for that. Listen, we all have films and types of films that appeal to us more, and then some that on the surface appeal to us less. That's fine. That's fine. There's lots of films that on the surface, that doesn't look like a movie that appeals to me. There's nothing wrong with that. I think you're a great kind of film fan that you heard a movie's really good. And even though it doesn't look like your kind of movie on the surface, you are a film fan. And so, you know what? I'm hearing great things about it. I'm going to put my expectations aside, even though it doesn't look like the type of film that I'm into all that much. By the way, with Rob here, I guess I can take the headphones off now. And you said, you know what, I'm going to check it out anyway, even though on its surface it doesn't look like the type of movie I would normally be into. And you did, and you got something out of it. So do not apologize for having certain types of films that don't look like on the surface they appeal to you. I think it's very commendable that you went ahead and checked it out, even though it's not. That's the key thing. And I'm glad that you did that, baby boy. And I'm glad you enjoyed it, dude. All right. James LH writes, hey, John, one of two. As I start work midday, the Super Bowl 1 week, the Oscar next, with a 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. UK finish sleep in. As for the Oscars, show bit hit and miss. It was a bit hit and miss, absolutely. For me, some of the awards were a surprise. I hope 1917 would win, but no problem with Parasite. Yeah, listen, 1917 was my third favorite film of the year. I was going to have no problem if it expectedly won. No problem with that whatsoever. It's a brilliant film. But once Bong Joon-ho won Best Director, then it was just a matter of math, right? It's like, okay, hold a second. Parasite won Best Screenplay and it won Best Director. I don't know that 1917 is the favorite anymore. And in that half hour between when Bong Joon won the Best Director and we got to the Best Picture thing, it was no longer a surprise, right? Because once he won Best Director, to compile, I mean, Best Foreign, that was a no-brainer. It had to win Best Foreign. I mean, it was the only one on the Best Foreign list that was also nominated for Best Picture. Therefore, it's automatic it was going to win Best Foreign. So put that aside. But taking home Screenplay and taking home Director, at that point, Vegas had to change the odds. 1917 at that point was no longer the favorite. And so again, though, a magnificent, magnificent film won Best Picture, and that's all we can hope for. All right. James LH in his part two. As I was watching through, I thought Parasite could possibly win with some of the technical awards going to 1917. I also thought there might be a split with Mendes for directing, Parasite for picture, similar to Saving Private Ryan. See, I think if Mendes had one director, that would have sealed it for me. Like 1917 was the prohibitive favorite to win Best Picture. If Sam Mendes had won Best Director, to me, that just would have locked it. I didn't see that award being split this year between Director and Best Picture. Could have happened. I didn't see that happening this year. But I really did think Sam Mendes was going to win Best Director. 1917 will win Best Picture. Once Bong Joon-ho won. And now, look, if Bong Joon-ho had not won Best Screenplay, right? Let's say another film won Best Screenplay. And then Bong Joon-ho won Best Director, I still would have thought there was a decent shot that 1917 would win Best Picture. But once the Academy has declared, we think Parasite Best Screenplay and Best Director, it's hard to imagine they weren't going to give it Best Picture. It was hard to imagine they weren't going to give Best Picture. But again, such brilliant films. What a great year, a great list of nominees. It was wonderful to see all the way around. All right. Ryan Lohner writes, as someone who works with developmentally disabled people, I thought Shia did very well. He really did. He knew just when a bit of help was needed and when to step back. By the way, I wish I had mentioned that moment when the two leads from Peanut Butter Falcon came out on stage together. What a beautiful moment. I thought that was great. It was one of the truly great surprise feel-good movies of the year. Another one that you could make an argument that maybe could have gotten some Best Picture love. I mean, Peanut Butter Falcon was so good, and I really thought that moment of the two of them on stage, and listen, how Shia LaBeouf handled the situation was perfect. It was perfect. And by the way, Ryan, thank you to you for serving our community by working with people who need some help in that way. Thank you so much for your service in that way and helping valuable members of our community the way you do. So thank you for that, sir. All right. Schnipp writes, last night was the first Academy Awards that Kirk Douglas wasn't. That's a really interesting way of looking at that Kirk Douglas wasn't alive for. Kirk born in 1916, first Academy Awards 1929. I didn't even think about that. By the way, how great was that little sign off at the end of I Am Spartacus? Perfect. That was great. That is a really good observation. This was the first time ever that the Academy Awards have ever happened without Kirk Douglas being alive. That is so weird to think of. That great observation, Schnipp. Great observation. All right, Couch Talk writes, Parasite was amazing, don't get me wrong, but I can't believe it beat Sam Mendes. Best Director should go to the most creative or inventive directing, but I feel like they gave it to the guy that makes the better story. Sam Mendes deserved directing. I disagree. There is no one basic formula, right? It's not about being the most creative or inventive. That's part of it, but it's also about pure execution. Who has the ability to step in as an artist and purely execute the overall story in the most compelling way? Creativity and inventiveness is definitely a part of that. Sam Mendes, who, by the way, I thought was going to win Best Director. And I would have no complaints if Sam Mendes had won Best Director. But that's not the only criteria. Those are just pieces of the puzzle in the overall picture of what director was really able to step in, take the screenplay, take all the pieces of the puzzle they had, and execute it best overall. And some people are going to feel that was Sam Mendes. Some people are going to feel it was Marty Scorsese. Some people are going to feel it was Quentin Tarantino. But a lot of people felt it was Bong Joon-ho. And it's really difficult because he did such an amazing job. I believe the margin between, particularly between Sam Mendes and Bong Joon-ho, were so minuscule, I don't think there's really any grounds personally to complain if Sam Mendes won or if Bong Joon-ho won. So yeah, I mean, listen, I was all ready for Sam Mendes to win and would have been thrilled. But what Bong Joon-ho did with a movie of that type of concept and execute it in such a compelling, can't take your eyes off the screen kind of way was inspired. It was completely inspired. Either one of them could have won and it would have been totally great. But it went to Bong Joon-ho and well-deserved. Well-deserved in my opinion. Anyway. Ash M writes, Oscar Josh Gad and Dina Menzel pronounced how it's spelled. Thought that was funny. Surprises. Parasite overtook 1917. Enjoyed the Oscars. Again, it was a very predictable Oscars for the most part. The Indina Menzel stuff with Josh Gad was funny. But again, once Bong Joon-ho took that Best Director thing, it became clear that they were also going to win Best Picture. And so it was kind of nice to have a bit of a mix of a lot of predictable wins. All the acting categories were completely predictable, all that kind of stuff. But then they mixed in some really big surprises as well with Parasite. So that was fun to see. All right, Samir Tesfaye writes, Parasite winning Best Picture and Best Director, plus two others makes last night for me a magical night to be a fan of all film and why I love the Oscars. Again, the Oscars to me last night were a little iffy at times. There were some kind of weird things that they did, and it was a little bit disjointed. But as to me, that's not what the Oscars are about. The Oscars are about the presentation. And I don't mean the presentation of the show as a whole. I mean, the winner is boom. To me, that's what the Oscars are all about. If you did an entire show of the Oscars of just person comes up to the stage, the nominees for this category are blah, 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 and the winner is boom, acceptance speech. Next person. The nominees for this category are blah, blah, blah. If that's all the Oscars were, I'd be totally good with it. Because that's the most important thing to the Oscars. You can throw in some other great stuff, in memoriam, other sorts of things that make it kind of special. Yep. And that's fine. But to me, it was the winners. That's what made the show for me. Otherwise, it had some hit and misses, some kind of weird moments and everything. But overall, it was the winners. Great list of winners. Great list of nominees. It was a big win for me as I sit back and look at it. All right. Da298 writes, everyone here in Ireland sad that Saoirse Ronan didn't win. Still, wrap your head around this, guys. 4 nominations by the age of 25. You know, we often talk about Timothée Chalamet, as I believe Timothée Chalamet is the next Daniel Day-Lewis. I believe he's the next. He's not Daniel Day-Lewis yet, but I believe that kid is going to be the next Daniel Day-Lewis. Saoirse Ronan at the age of 25 already having 4 Oscar nominations. I'm not saying she is, but if there's any younger actress out there who you could possibly say might be the next Meryl Streep, it's her. And I'm not saying she is. I'm just saying that if you had to give that crown, that title to any younger actress today, out of all the younger actresses today, who could be the next Meryl Streep? It very well could be Ronan. I mean, she's remarkable, and 4 Academy Award nominations already. It's dumbfounding. It's absolutely dumbfounding. All right, Edward Wells writes, why did they pull the German soldier from the plane? I would have let him burn. I'm not going to get into spoilers. Ashton C. writes, Bong Joon-ho deserved Best Director for the way he managed that incredible ensemble cast. Still think 1917 deserved Best Picture for being superior in most other categories: score, production design, cinematography, sound editing, etc. Love both. Though, listen, again, it's a testimony, Ashton. I think what you just said is a testimony just how good the movies were. Like, it's, and again, it's kind of like what I was talking about with Birds of Prey and the emancipation of the fantabulous emancipation of One Harley Quinn. A lot of great elements, but it's all about how it all comes together. I agree with you. I think when you look at the individual pieces, I think I might give the slight nod to 1917. But it's about how does the director bring all of it together into one coherent, well-executed package. And Parasite is just an enthralling movie that, by the way, kind of changes gears a number of times throughout the movie, kind of changing genres a little bit. Like, at one point you're feeling like it's a comedy. At another point it feels like it's a thriller. At another point it feels a little bit like a mystery. Like, they really do kind of change genres, but do it so seamlessly. It's just that in 1917, and just, my God, the movies this year were so good. And those are two of the absolute best. I still wish Jojo Rabbit would have won, but I'm totally great with either 1917 or Parasite taking it as well. Forgive me as I struggle through the name. Akachukwu writes, kind of distasteful clapping through the in memoriam. I don't know that I agree. I don't know that I would, but understand, what is clapping? We are infused with the idea of applauding is a physical response to something we feel is worthy or praiseworthy or admirable, right? When we see something that we deem as worthy of our recognition or worthy of admiration or worthy of our respect, our natural inclination, I don't know why, as human beings, is to do, I mean, that's kind of a weird motion, but it is. That is our natural human reaction, to just do this. Like, right, we hear somebody say something really sharp and we go, oh. We're walking down the street and we see some kid pull a wicked trick on a skateboard. I mean, that's our reaction, right? And I think in memoriam, yeah, there are times people clap and times people don't, but I never once feel like, oh, clapping at this point is disrespectful. I don't know that I agree with that. I feel that's a natural response that we have when we feel like we want to recognize something or honor something. Should we or shouldn't we? I don't know. But is it disrespectful? I don't know. I certainly don't think it was anybody's intent to be disrespectful. It's like they see somebody that meant something to them and they want to put their hands together. I have no problem with it. I have no problem. But that's just me. You probably raise an interesting point of discussion there, though. But my initial reaction is I've got no problem with it. That's just me. All right. KB writes, I'm so glad Joaquin Phoenix won Best Actor. He deserves it. Me and my wife cheered when his name was called. I was excited to hear a heartfelt acceptance speech, only to be lectured to about cow's milk, social justice, and politics. I can't stand this crap. Listen, I have no problem, okay? I have no problem when an award winner, an Academy Award winner, wants to take a moment and use their platform to talk about something that is important to them. Doesn't matter what it is. If it's their mom, if it's a particular issue, I have no problem when any award winner wants to take a moment that they have that spotlight to mention something that to them is important. I'm okay with that. And I was also thrilled with Joaquin Phoenix winning. It was expected, but it's totally deserved. His performance as Joker is unfreaking believable. It was great to see him win. But as a big Joaquin Phoenix fan, and as a huge fan of his performance, and as a huge fan of somebody who's cheering for him to win, it was a weird moment. I'll just leave it at that. It was an odd moment. So, yeah. So I can't disagree with it. It was an odd moment. It was definitely an odd moment. All right. Next up, Jordan writes, Was that KB? Yes. Jordan writes, I'll watch John for his reviews, not predicting the Oscars. Hashtag Parasite. Well, remember, I got a lot of them right. But anyway, hashtag Parasite, hashtag Bong Joon-ho. Love your channel, John. Your love for cinema is awesome and much needed for us geeks. I always had a feel Parasite would come out on top. Surprise? Yes. Upset? No. I agree. Surprise? Yes. I mean, look, the pattern just started to emerge, right? The big 6 awards was starting to become clear as you got through all the award season. We got through the DGA, the SAG awards, the BAFTA awards, like all these things. It was setting up a bunch of clear front runners. Joaquin Phoenix for Joker, and he did win. Renee Zellweger for Judy, and she did win. Laura Dern for Marriage Story, and she did win. Brad Pitt for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and he did win. But also the pattern we saw emerge just as much as those was Sam Mendes winning for Best Director. He won the Directors Guild Award. 1917 for Best Picture. Sam Mendes also won the BAFTA for Best Director and 1971 Best Picture. It just started to become as clear as those other ones. 4 of them did, a couple of them didn't, and I agree. Surprise? Yes. Upset? Absolutely not. It was just such a brilliant movie. All right, Evelyn writes, and we only got a few more minutes here, guys, and then we're going to have to wrap it up. Evelyn writes, was it just me or the audience was not very excited about the winners last night? Really, Eminem got a standing ovation, but Brad Laura didn't. I honestly, Evelyn, I think people read too much into things. I did not feel that the audience wasn't enthusiastic or that the audience wasn't into it. I didn't feel that at all. I think we're reading a little bit too much into it, but that's just me. All right. Raymond Verrata writes, congrats to Parasite for all the awards it won. This will not be the last time we see Sharon Choi, the Korean interpreter, as she is also a writer and director. Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that. Bong Joon-ho said after the Oscars, she will be working on a feature-length script, which is very cool to know. Again, his acceptance speech was so great. All of his acceptance speeches were great. But again, to me, one of the best lines ever at the Oscars. I'm going to drink until the daytime tomorrow, or something along those lines. I just thought that was hilarious. Celise Baratheon just sends in a super chat to be supportive. Thank you so much, Celise, for being supportive in that way. I appreciate that very much. That was very kind of you. All right. Tim Platt writes, good news from Birds of Prey. I wasn't disappointed. Bad news? I thought it looked meh at best from the trailers. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, if you're not disappointed, but you're not disappointed because you never really had high expectations anyway, is that good or bad? Listen, my feeling on Birds of Prey is still this. I didn't like the film, but I didn't hate it. I mean, there is certainly a lot of good pieces to this puzzle. I felt like there were still a lot of good pieces to the puzzle. It just that, again, the pieces didn't come together for me to an overall enjoyable film. Not a horrible film by any stretch. And I certainly see why other people and other critics did like it. I can totally see why. It just didn't quite work for me on that level, but not a train wreck, not a total mess, nothing like that. And again, while it's box office performance, I'm sure they're disappointed. It's not a total travesty. On their first weekend, they pretty much made back their production budget. I still think they're going to end up losing money, but I don't think it's going to be an insane amount of money that they lose when it's all said and done. So how they take that is going to be up to be seen. All right. Next up, Scott D writes, saw a great list of people left out of the In Memoriam. Wanted to recognize them. Luke Perry, Jan Michael Vincent, Tim Conway, Carol Spinney, Michael J. Pollard, Tim Conway, again, Renee Aber, Jonas, Cameron Boyce. Yeah, again, that's the thing about In Memoriam, is that there will always be some names left out. And again, the funny thing is, Scott, they could have included all those names, and then people like you and me would have come up with another set of names that were probably left out. It's unfortunate. Again, to me, the big thing is, were there any really egregious names missing? Like, for example, Tim Conway. Tim Conway is a genius. Absolute genius. But he wasn't a movie personality. He was that's something for the Emmys to recognize. You know what I mean? This was the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences. He wasn't really one of theirs. Now you say about Kobe Bryant. Yeah, but Kobe was an Academy Award winner. So as long as there's no hugely egregious ones missing, I thought Luke Perry was a very notable one that they missed. But again, like I say, you could put on 1,000 names and there's still going to be people like me that will come up with a list of people that they left out. So it's unfortunate and sucks, but the In Memoriam is still one of my absolute favorite parts of the Oscars. All right. Celeste Baratheon writes, which Oscar win surprised you the most? Here's the thing. If I didn't watch the Oscars last night and just looked at the results today, I would say that the one that surprised me most was Parasite winning Best Picture over 1917. However, because I did watch the Oscars, once Bong Joon-ho won Best Director, then the math just became clear. Oh, it won Best Screenplay and it won Best Director. It is most likely going to end up taking the Best Picture win. So at the moment, watching it, Bong Joon-ho winning Best Director was my biggest surprise. Because once he won, Parasite winning Best Picture kind of became predictable. But if I had skipped the Oscars last night and just woke up this morning and looked at the results list, Parasite winning Best Picture would have been the one that caught me most by surprise. But in the moment watching it, it was Bong winning Best Director. And by the way, again, so well deserved. So well deserved. Andrew G. writes, 1917 did not deserve visual effects. I thought the idea of stitching a few scenes together was a commendable choice, but not visual effects worthy. It looked just as good as any other war movie, but war films rarely get nominated for best visual effects. Am I missing something here? Oh, it absolutely deserved a nomination. Again, nothing should have touched Lion King. Lion King is the most stunning, jaw-dropping achievement in visual effects I've ever seen. Whether you love the movie or hate the movie is completely irrelevant. Doesn't matter if you love the movie or hate the movie. The fact that probably still a majority of people out there still think it's a live action film is all you need to know. But the way visual effects, I like the way Robert describes it. Visual effects is not just about the individual effect, but is how well is it all put together in the composition of the shot. So many of the visual effects in that movie are so seamlessly integrated that it makes you believe you are in that world. And on that level, it was a stunning achievement in visual effects. An absolute stunning achievement in visual effects, what it was able to do. And on that level, I completely believe that it absolutely deserved the nomination. Absolutely deserved a nomination. Maybe not the win, but it absolutely deserved a nomination. All right, Jay Meister 25 writes, shame that Marvel didn't get a best visual effects yet again. Thanos is the best looking CGI character since Caesar. Oh, well, but again, to me, Endgame got totally outclassed in visual effects by Lion King. I would even put 1917's visual effects above Endgame. Endgame had a lot of visual effects, but like Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker also had some stunningly good visual effects and a lot of visual effects, and they all looked great, but and Thanos is a great looking character, sure, and they totally deserve. I believe Rise of Skywalker deserved to be nominated. I believe Endgame deserved to be nominated. But yeah, I'm not surprised. I don't know anybody that was picking Endgame to win. To be honest with you, I don't know anybody that was picking Endgame to win. So I really wasn't surprised by that. All right, Noel writes, Parasite won Best Picture without having an actor nominations. What was the last movie to do that? It's happened more than you think. Lord of the Rings, by the way. Lord of the Rings won Best Picture. Lord of the Rings Return of the King won Best Picture without any of the actors being nominated. So there's one right there. Anyway, also, what movies have won Best Original Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Picture from the Academy? Well, I don't know that off the top of my head. I would have to go back and look that up. But honestly, what is more indicative of what stands a chance to win Best Picture, honestly, more than the acting categories, are screenplay and director. I believe those ones, and they're not automatic formulas, by the way, by any stretch of the imagination. But I believe like screenplay and directing are far more better like win carousels as far as what might win Best Picture, far more than the acting categories. So that's how I kind of feel about that. But yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head What other movies have won Best Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Picture? Lord of the Rings is one that comes to mind. It won Best Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Picture, and it won 8 others on top of that as well. All right, Santez Henderson writes, very happy with last night's Oscars, Parasite. I mean, I'm very happy with it was great. Again, such a great celebration of the year of 2019 in film. It was just amazing. Junya Bunya writes, what are your thoughts on the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard? Already talked about it. I'm not talking about any TMZ gossip, he said, she said nonsense. I'm not getting into any of that. Everybody is bringing their own political bias to it, and I'm just staying out of it. Ryan Cleary writes, stunt people really deserve a category. Thoughts? No, we've talked about this a number of times. It's just too impossible because the Academy has no way of knowing what was done. That's the thing. The Academy can read the screenplay. The Academy can see the cinematography. The Academy can see the performances. They can see the job the director did. They can see the visual effects. They can hear the sound. They can do all that kind of stuff. But a lot of times you have no idea what a stunt person did or did not do. That's why I believe there needs to be a body that recognizes the great work of stunt people. But you just can't adequately, because what does an Academy member vote on? You weren't there. You don't know what was stunt, what wasn't stunt, what did they actually go through to do a stunt? Because there might be something that looked really mundane on screen, but the Academy will never know exactly how much work went into making that happen with stunt people behind the scenes. It's just something that can't be adjudicated. That's what I've been saying that for like 10 years. The problem with the idea of a stunt category is that no voting member of the category has any idea about what it is they're voting on. They're not there unless you're there on set to see what it is that's being done. There's just no way to adjudicate it. It's unfortunate. It sucks. But if there's no way to adjudicate it, then there's no point in making a category for it. I think a maybe potential solution to that is having a small 1-minute segment every year just saying, listen, if you do this every year at the Oscars, a lot of the great movies we watch every year simply wouldn't be made possible without the incredible work and dedication and artistry of the stunt people. Let's take a look at some of the great stunt work in film this year and then do like a 1-minute montage. So I'd be all cool with them making sure they honor stunt people every year with something like that. But again, without there being any real practical way to adjudicate it, I don't see how you do a category. Calvin Bowes writes, I thought you said 1917 was a lock. Hey, listen, it was. Again, I said the 4 acting categories were locks and they all won. But again, it became clear. You look at the pattern, 1917 and Sam Mendes for Best Director, they were pretty much locks. I mean, they weren't automatic locks like Parasite was for Best Foreign Film, but it was pretty much a lock. And that's why it's a big surprise, right? That's why everybody is calling Parasite's win a surprise, because it's a big upset. But we were hoping for at least 1 or 2 big upsets. We were hoping for a big surprise. And a lot of the other ones that were locks all came in. But those 2 didn't, and it created for a really interesting evening. I couldn't be happier for it. All right. Actor Friend 90 writes, love Rudolph and Wiig. I did not like Kristen Wiig's dress, but yeah, Maya Rudolph and Kristen Wiig, they're like, we're Maya Rudolph and Kristen Wiig. We can do whatever they want. If we want to sing a song medley, we're going to do it. I love those 2 together. All right, last couple of questions here, guys. Then we're going to have to call it a day. Jerry J writes, hey, John, avid watcher here. Thank you so much, Jerry. With a historic 3 Oscar wins, what do you think Black Panther's role will be in the MCU moving forward? Again, it is, first of all, Black Panther still stands as winning the most Academy Awards out of any comic book film in history. However, it didn't win the most significant awards. Like, I think Joaquin Phoenix winning one of the major categories, Best Lead Actor, I think that outshines Black Panther's 3 smaller wins, but still, Black Panther has won more Academy Awards as a comic book film than any other comic book film in history. And that's not a small thing. What's Black Panther's role moving forward? Clearly, he has a role moving forward. I mean, Kevin Feige, I remember him saying before the first movie came out, Captain America Civil War came out, that T'Challa is going to be an integral part of the MCU moving forward. Now, of course, this was before Civil War came out, so maybe their plans have changed, but it seems to me like T'Challa has a very, very important role to play in whatever the future plans are that Kevin Feige has. And that's great with me, because I'll watch Chadwick Boseman playing T'Challa any day of the week. I'd be more than happy to watch him play that role. All right. Anthony M. writes, great show, guys. Thank you so much, Anthony. Appreciate that. I also didn't care for the humor before presenting the awards. They should stick to professionalism and Hollywood tradition. Again, Anthony, I don't know that I completely agree with that. See, one of the things that a lot of people will often complain about the Academy Awards is sometimes it feels like it takes itself too seriously. And they don't relax a little bit and have a little bit of fun with it. I don't believe it's an either or. I don't believe it's you're either respectful or you try to have some fun. I think it can be a both and. I hate the Golden Globes. I think they're totally tits on a bull useless. But they put on a great show. And I think there are lessons the Oscars can learn from. Don't try to become the Golden Globes. Because the Oscars are far more important. Act like it. But I do believe there are lessons the Oscars can learn from the Golden Globes. And I kind of dug it. I kind of dug it. I don't think you have to choose between being honoring and being fun. I think it can be a both and. I think you can mix it up a little bit. So that was just me, but clearly, Anthony, you're not alone. Rob feels the same way. But I kind of dug it, but that was just me. All right. John Pope writes, prime Larry Bird or prime Durant? Prime Larry Bird. Just one of the most dumb. When he got his hands on the ball, and look, Kevin Durant can do more things athletically, no doubt. But Larry Bird, I mean, he was like, I remember there's this great story, him walking into like the All-Star locker room before the All-Star game. It was like before the 3-point competition. And Larry Bird just walked into this locker room with icons and legends in it and said, hey guys, which one of you guys is playing for second place? I mean, and sure enough, Larry Bird just went out, boom, 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 boom. You just can't underestimate, the NBA is only where it is today because of Magic and Bird. I mean, Magic and Bird. I remember David Stern, before he passed away, we talked about this. Magic and Bird saved the NBA. And it was because of their pure dominance and that incredible rivalry, which turned into a great friendship. But yeah, I will take Bird in his prime any day. I will take Larry Bird in his prime any day. Durant can certainly be lethal and is a true MVP, but I will take Larry Bird any day. Let's see. Sam O writes, where does Parasite's upset win rank? It's hard to say because, like we were saying a little bit earlier, it was an upset because all the signs pointed to 1917 winning. But everybody loves Parasite, right? So everybody loving Parasite and knowing how good that film is kind of mitigates the shock a little bit. So, for instance, it would have been a much bigger shock because nobody would have seen, I don't know, what's a good example? Like Ford v Ferrari, which is so good. Ford v Ferrari is so good, but nobody was expecting Ford v Ferrari to win Best Picture last night. Nobody. It is not considered by most people to be a top 2 or 3 movie of the year. It's in my top 5, but most people didn't put it in the top 2 or 3. So Ford v Ferrari winning would have been a much bigger shock. Parasite, for a lot of people, is a top 2 or 3 movie of the year. And so I think that mitigates the shock. So a shock, yes. A surprise, yes. An upset, yes. But is it one of the biggest? I would say no. I would almost say that like when you want to look at big upsets or shocks or wins, you're looking at Crash, you're looking at Shakespeare in Love, particularly when you're looking at the films that they were against, were really big surprises. And by the way, I love both of those films. But I don't know that you can consider Parasite's win like one of the biggest shocks in Oscar history. But anyway, that's just me. Anyway, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. For everybody from Nick, Eddie Camacho, and everybody else who sent in questions after that, do not worry. Your questions are going to be the first ones that get answered on the John Campea Show tomorrow. There's only about 10 more questions to go, so those first 10 questions will be the first 10 we answer on the John Campea Show tomorrow. You sent in the questions. They're going to get answered properly. And by the way, guys, if you want to send in a question early so it gets answered early in the show, just go ahead and use the tip link that's in the top line of the description of this video. That's streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You can see the link right down there in the description. If you want to send it in early, it'll be one of the first questions that get answered tomorrow. But the first ones will be you, Nick, and you, Eddie, and those people who came after you as well. Guys, Thank you so much for being here and making this show a part of your day. It's always fun to get together with the international friends and talk about our favorite things in the world. Great to talk about the Oscars, and we'll be back again tomorrow. Me and Robert Meyer Burnett will be back. Hopefully you guys will be back too, and thank you to Robert Meyer Burnett for bringing his glory to the show here today. Thank you to all of you for making this show a part of your day, and a special thank you to all you guys who sent in questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but also because you supported the channel while you were doing it. And all of us here at the John Campea YouTube channel, thank you very much for that. Special reminder, guys, for those of you who are Patreon supporters and on our Discord server, in about 5 minutes, we're going to have a special John Campea Show post-show chat. So for those of you who are Patreon supporters, make sure you go over to the Discord server. We're going to have a post-show chat there. In just about 5 or 10 minutes, I'll be jumping in the chat board there to join the rest of you guys there. All right, guys, that will do it for me for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here. My name is John Campea, guys, and until tomorrow, bye-bye.